Welcome into Boxing Scene Today. One of the things that is continually dramatic outside of the ring is the relationship between Vergil Ortiz and Golden Boy, the promotion versus fighter duel that has wide-reaching implications. Why? Zuffa, of course, claiming that obviously other promotions aren't doing their job well, Oscar De La Hoya being among them, another fractured relationship between Golden Boy and a star. Now, they might go to mediation. They might settle it before that. Precedent says, and according to Boxing Scene, that they will probably come to an arrangement before the mediation. But the idea that Vergil Ortiz has publicly said, I'm done with Golden Boy. What could that mean moving forward? Jimmy Smith alongside the champs, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi. Folks, Paulie, you talk about it all the time, that we live in a social media era. But one of the problems with that is people say things publicly that define a private relationship. Is it a point of no return when a fighter says, I'm done with my promoter? Or does money make everybody friends in the end? What's the deal, Paulie?
Yeah, it's a business, and sometimes, you know, the litigation can be very, very difficult, very, very violent at the negotiating table, shall I say.
It can be expensive, too.
It can be expensive.
Yeah.
Champ, you would know, right? So, you know, I can't say it's fractured permanently because money makes everything better. If everything comes together, if everything at the negotiating table comes together, and then the money is made right. Listen, we've seen situations where fighters have stayed with promoters after not being happy. And sometimes the terms are better. Sometimes they're just forced into it because the contracts are decided that way by the judge or by the arbitration. Either way, you got to make lemons out of lemonade. So whatever situation winds up happening here, I think it's in the best interest for both parties to, you know, make it work out if they do have to stay together. If they don't, well then, you know, you go in your own direction and that's it. Both sides go in their own direction and that's it. But I think in the interim, happy or not, if it's going to wind up that they stay together, then it's best for both parties to sort of try to make it work as best as possible within the structure that the decisions have been made.
Now, Chris, is this different than the Ryan Garcia situation, who complained a lot, was complaining about Golden Boy and Oscar De La Hoya, but didn't have a specific fight to necessarily rally around? And Ryan was doing a lot of stuff. He was behaving oddly outside of the ring, so we kind of went, oh, this guy's just a little bit off, and just kind of talking about everything. There wasn't this specific fight, kind of this red line, this line in the sand between promoter and fighter that we're seeing here. Is it a similar situation, or is it different?
I think it's both. I think it's similar in that, you know, obviously it's a promoter and a fighter schism in terms of where they see where their career is going, where the fighter's career is going, and what's best for the company. But I think it's a personality difference because of Ryan versus Vergil. I think Ryan is a lot like Oscar, and I think they have a lot of, you know, that interweaving personality traits that make them stars, but also make them a little bit manic, and they can butt heads, and they can have some strife. But Vergil's solid. Like, he's a very different personality. He's straight and narrow. He stays the true track. And is very focused on moving forward. So maybe just dealing with a little bit of the windy road that tends to happen in boxing careers is making him itchy. And then finally, this fight was the straw that broke the camel's back. And now we're seeing the struggle really come to surface. And then him going out there and saying, like, I'm done with Golden Boy. I look at that. I'm thinking a couple different things. I'm like, all right, is he personally done with this company and this guy? And like, he's just like, you know what, I can't trust this moving forward on that personal level. Or is it like, my lawyers are telling me we are winning this thing and we're going to go forward with it. I'm going to stick to my guns. You know, we got the contract. We got the everything in place to move forward. Because listen, I've been in these situations. Lawyers always say that. They always say we got a strong case. Because you got a strong case, you're still going to pay them until we get to that position. And then if we don't get in arbitration, we don't get the decision we want.
That's why the lawyer tells you got a strong case. He wants you getting paid.
Right,
That's exactly my point. That's exactly my point. As it gets closer, that's when the lawyer starts dropping hints like, you know, you never know how it's going to go. Yeah. Whoa. 2 months ago, you were telling me we can't lose.
It was a slam dunk.
Because you needed that deposit.
Yeah,
Right.
Exactly. So these kind of things always make me feel kind of tricky. And this is the tough part about being so much access to athletes is because they can say things off the whim, and then it becomes a headline. Like, does he
That's
really
what we're talking
mean
about.
that?
No.
And again, we have to look through the line, you know, decipher between the lines what's true and what's not.
I've seen these kind of situations go in both directions. You know, I've seen situations where obviously the fighter wants more done by the promoter and the promoter doesn't do it, but the promoter, despite not holding up their end, will fight tooth and nail to keep that fighter under contract because they don't care about ethics. They want to make money, and that's an investment they have, right? And I've seen it on the other side as well, where a fighter thinks the promoter should be doing more for them, but there's nothing really more to do when the fighter's just not that good or not at that level or not marketable enough or so on and so forth, and they want to leave because they think somebody else can do better. But in reality, they're not really bringing anything to the table where the grass is going to be green on the other side. So I've seen these cases in both directions. And, you really, until you get into the nitty gritty and the fine print, you don't know, which one it is a lot of times. We're hearing a lot of rumors in this particular situation. Champ, I know you mentioned we would love to have somebody
from either
side come on the show and talk if they can. Maybe there's some gag orders right now because of an ongoing case and they're not able to. So we're left here up to speculation. But I will say I've seen this kind of thing go in both directions,
But I want to address that for just 1 second. I've worked for every major combat sports organization in the world. I don't talk a lot about what happened there and my experiences there, because why would I? Nothing good comes out of everything can be taken out of context. Everything can be blown up. I don't do that. One time when I was done with the WWE, all I said was the WWE. It was about DC, and he didn't get a big pop. Like, he came on, he was refereeing a match, and the crowd.
Daniel Cormier,
I'm sorry. For the non-MMA people, Daniel Cormier, DC.
I got your back.
Right.
I got you.
So anyway, he was on screen. The crowd didn't react that much. They just, And then he refereed this match, and I go, and they were talking about DC going to WWE, and I go, you have to look a certain way to make it in the WWE. DC doesn't look like that. He's got kind of a dad bod, can thrash everybody,
can beat everyone up in the
everybody up in the with one hand tied behind his back, but he doesn't look like Roman Reigns. Yeah. Roman Reigns looks like
you gotta look like an action figure.
You got to look like an action figure. And the headline was like, former commentator says WWE athletes can't fight or something. I just said, no, you have to look the part. Whether you don't have to be a badass, but you have to look like one. Everybody, and I went, see what happens when you say, and I was like, that is absurd. That's not at all what I said. It's just interesting the aesthetics of WWE. We have to look at an action figure and a real athlete where you and I can tell the difference and go, that guy can really throw down. It's a different kind of build, right?
Well, Tyson Fury in the dad bod, right?
Tyson Fury could destroy. Look at.
I mean, we got a lot of them right now. Zerto Ramirez. We have, David Benavidez.
Ruiz was heavyweight champion.
Andrew Ruiz.
Who just got criticized? Navarrete. They're like, oh, he's a little thick. I'm like, dude, he just destroyed.
Meanwhile, that's one of the better physiques he's ever shown.
Remember Adam Konecki? He was a top contender too.
Right.
And I remember Adam used to laugh about it. He used to say the dad bod is in right now.
Fedor Emelianenko, a little pudgy dude, destroyed everybody.
Yeah.
But my point is, right, to go back to what we're talking about is anything you say publicly can and will be used against you.
Yeah.
And it's this idea that Vergil may have not been listening. Like, if I were Rick Meridian, I go, look, don't say anything publicly. We'll handle this. Lawyers will handle it. Try and stay out of it as much as you possibly can, because it never helps, Chris. Is that just good advice that maybe Vergil either isn't getting or didn't listen to?
No,
it never helps.
It's just like you said, even an off-the-cuff comment can become a headline that everyone's going to talk about because you're at that star status. And especially when you've got the media all around you the way that this fight and these fighters do. It's just a very tricky time right now. And I think you got to be careful, but at the same time, the news minute's a minute, and even though you might say something off the cuff that goes one way, I mean, how many times have we seen that? Guys say this, guys say that, and then look where we are. Like Ryan Garcia is a perfect example. He said a bunch of things in the history of his career that have gotten him some hot water. Well, he's a world champion on top of the world right now, so and he's riding very, very high. So boxing's always, what have you done for me lately? So this is the flavor of the moment right now, and maybe he said something, but we don't really know what he meant. In terms of, is this a lasting thing? Is this a personal thing? Is this a business thing? And it's hard to say. And it's only listen, this is why we do this every day, because it changes every day. We get more information every day. And that's why everyone is so locked in on this stuff, because it is to the minute.
When you look at the public perception of Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy, the difference of Ryan Garcia, to your point, has said a lot of weird stuff. The breakup,
so does Oscar,
right? And so does Oscar. But the difficulty can be seen as, well, they're both a little nuts. Maybe it's a personality thing, two big egos involved. Paulie, we don't know Vergil Ortiz Jr. personally. We've spent time with him. We've been on the road. He's been there. nice, humble, quiet guy, solid
dude,
as Chris talked about. You and I hear rumors about his training. Coach Robert Garcia, obviously a friend of the show, has been on the show many times as his coach, and he said nothing but dude puts his head down and works, and isn't out partying, doing stuff in the street. This guy saying, I'm done with Golden Boy, does it carry a little more gravity? Because he's a hard-working Mexican-American kid, almost the stereotype.
Frustration will make us vent sometimes, and I think it's just frustration for Ortiz. You're not, every day that passes, you're getting a little older, and your window in boxing is small, so you want to work things out. You want to work things out to the best of the ability of your career, and sometimes you feel like you can't maximize what you bring to the table with a certain promoter, with a certain manager. I don't know. I will say this. If Golden Boy is able to get a TV deal, they're in much better position. But if not, my question would be to Oscar, would you in your career stay with a promoter that had no TV deal? You know what I'm saying? Because Oscar had obviously a monstrous career, and obviously Oscar was marketable enough to where he got his own TV deals just on his own. He was almost like an exclusive thing to himself, sort of like Joshua was in England. I remember when Matchroom moved over to the Zone, Joshua's deal with Sky continued for a little while. He didn't move over to the Zone yet. He was his own entity, so to speak, even despite being with Matchroom. So,
when you're that big, you have your own orbit.
Yeah, so Oscar kind of had his own orbit, but if Oscar for a moment could maybe step out of that orbit into the normal fighter's orbit, even a normal championship fighter's orbit, I would ask him what his thoughts would be on that. Would he expect himself to stay with a promoter who had no TV deal, despite being a world-class fighter that he was, just like Vergil is a world-class fighter that he is? Could he expect from such a promoter to be able to give him the best to match the talent and the ability of him as a fighter if that promoter had no TV days? Just like Vergil is expecting the promoter to come up with the talent and the ability to match his talent and ability, so that it comes together. And I think that starts with a TV deal. You reach a world-class level and then your promoter has no TV deal. I've been there, bro. It's one of the most frustrating things in the world. It is very, very frustrating.
3 fighters in a row, 3 top fighters for Golden Boy, right? Which is Canelo, Ryan Garcia, and now Vergil Ortiz Jr. having various levels of disagreement with Golden Boy and De La Hoya, all with very different personalities. Canelo a little bit quieter, right? But a huge star in his own right. Vergil trying to get to that star status, but also a humble, hardworking kid as far as we're concerned. Ryan Garcia, a bit all over the place, a bit wild. It's this idea that it's not good that it's 3 in a row. It's not good that they're all different kinds of personality. You can't blame it on one kind of personality type that's been a problem. It's the reputation of Golden Boy is damaged,
Jimmy,
even if it isn't their fault. Yeah.
It's also the question you asked before: does money make everything better? A TV
with
deal,
Ryan, it seems to be helping.
A TV deal is money makes everything better. A TV deal, Golden Boy locking in a major TV deal, makes everything better for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, automatically you're going to start not only making the fighters under your stable happy, but more fighters will join up again, and they'll be signing with you and so on and so forth. A TV deal changes the game. A promoter with a major, especially a major TV deal, and that's essentially what separates the pretenders and the contenders of the promotional game.
And I also find that grudges tend not to last in this sport because the talent pool in the population is so small. If the deals can be made and everything's good, if everybody's making money, everybody's happy. Everybody's happy. Promoter, fighter, you name it. But to your point about those 3 fighters, those are all really different guys. And I don't even mean personally, I mean even levels of stardom.
Yeah.
Canelo, again, he's a guy who has his own orbit. Ryan, who's a very, very big star, but not quite as big as Canelo was at that time. And then Vergil, again, he's a guy, I think his skill level, it completely overshines his public persona and profile. So very, very different guys in terms of that. And to your point, Champ, yeah, I think that's really the sticking point. We haven't heard a lot of griping between Vergil and Oscar until this point, which Vergil has a very good point. If you don't have a TV for me, 1, it's in my contract. If there's no TV deal, then you're in breach. And 2, it's like he's literally at the cusp of as big as he can be.
To explain it to people at home, if your promoter doesn't have a TV deal, the only way you're getting a major TV fight is if you are brought in as an opponent for somebody else's star, a promoter who has the TV deal and needs to use an opponent. And there's a catch-22 there because, okay, you can make the money, but you have no say in terms of negotiation. But also, if you're too good, no promoter picks you as the opponent. You know,
they don't want to bring you on to beat their guy.
Yeah, they're not gonna bring you on and beat their guy. So you'll actually be ostracized. You know, you have to be good enough to be put in that spot, but not too good to win. And so you're always kind of having to take fights that, you know, may not be to your best advantage, or you're not able to take fights that may be able to promote you to the best of the ability of being promoted, because, you know, you're what's called a provision of services, POS it's called, and POS not the POS you're thinking about.
Different POS,
provision of services, you know, where basically the promoter gives your services to the other promoter.
The service, that being the fighter. That's what people have to understand. The provision of services is the service is actually you offering your fighter to fight on your show. Similar to how when I fought Ruslan Provodnikov, negotiating power was zilch. Yeah. It was zero. You're lucky to get this shot. Go in there. You're 15-1 underdog.
Yeah, that's the dates. That's the only dates you're getting when you're with a POS promoter, essentially, who has no dates. I had that with DeBell Entertainment. But no dates at all. So
this one's funny because Oscar is a big promoter and had a TV deal.
Oscar had major TV deals.
Yeah,
matter of fact, when I signed with Golden Boy, you know, that was the reason I signed with them.
But DeBella and Joe DeGuardia, when we were with them and we had to be the POS, was that they weren't big enough to put on a show that could handle our level, our stature at that time. Yeah. And then they had to go to Top Rank. They had to go to Golden Boy. They had to go to other
When I signed with DBE early in my career, they had a lot of HBO dates. They had a lot of TV deals. By the time my career arc went into that world-class level where I was able to fight at a world-class level, he had no TV dates left at that high level. The company had been already dipping and continued to dip. So, you know, it couldn't match what I was looking for, you know, and, you know, that caused those problems. But, you know, it's a business. Listen, I mean, there's pros and cons to every situation. You hope this gets worked out. You know, from the outside looking in, you know, as a fan, you want to see Vergil Ortiz active. You want to see Vergil Ortiz fighting. But I also think Golden Boy Promotions remaining a competitor at the high level, the business is also good for boxing as well. You know, so you from somebody who's on the outside looking in, you know, I hope this thing can be worked out in a way where, you know, both sides could win.
Well, when you talk about stardom, you talk about the ability to call your own shot. It's always been, in the boxing world, one of those things where you have to make it in the United States in order to be a star. Well, that could be changing now with YouTube and everyone knowing about every fighter everywhere. But the monster, Inoue, one of the debates here is, can he be big fighting in Japan, or are you just big in Japan? Well, Shushu Carrington, coming off a great win, a 9th round knockout, that was at Masculine Garden over Castro, has said that Inoue isn't big until he wins in New York. He's got to beat me in order to up his profile. That's big talk at 17-0. Chris, I see you laughing, but this is a kid who's flying high, feeling good, coming off a great win. You got to shoot your shot, right?
That's not even just it. The kid's brilliant.
Yeah,
he's doing such a great job to angle himself into these positions to get these. He talked himself into his title fight that he just earned, and it was a great performance, of course. He earned his way into it, but also he showed up at everything. He put in the groundwork. Granted, he does the work. He does the work in the gym. Granted, he has the talent to be a champion, and he earned it properly and won by an amazing knockout a couple weeks ago. But he really moved the needle very fast, because you couldn't turn on anything boxing related and not see Shushu going like, yo, I'm the guy, fight me next. He was calling out everybody. He was at Espinosa's fights. He was at Inoue's fights. He's saying that he wants every one of those guys to fight him. He wants all the smoke, exactly the way you want a champion to act. But in terms of what he's saying, I don't necessarily agree. I think Inoue's already a star. He's already a global star. I've been to a lot of Inoue fights. This guy sells out the Tokyo Dome. This guy, it comes to Vegas. I called the Vegas fight when he fought Cardenas, and the place was packed. The place was rip-roaring. I mean, yeah, Inoue's already a star, but listen, if you're trying to get a fight with the monster, this is a good way to do it.
Yeah, I think it's him shooting his shot, and
in some
ways, he has a point. Listen, there was a time where you had to come to the U.S. and make it big in the U.S. to be a star. I do think that time has passed, but you know, there's still a nostalgia about that feeling. So, you know, I don't think it's completely out of the realm to at least put it out there and say, no, you gotta be big in America. You're big in Japan, but you gotta be big in New York. it's worth putting out there. If you're fishing for the big opportunity.
Well, from the right mouthpiece, it actually sets a tone.
Exactly, and he's a world champion, so it is the right mouthpiece.
He's a great
it's
mouthpiece.
not just somebody random fighter who's never going to get a shot anyway, trying to put himself out there. It's somebody who's, like you said, put in the groundwork, done the work, got the results, and now he's like, okay, I have a right to say this because I'm on this level. And my word is going to mean something if I say it. So you know what? Whether you agree with it or not, I have a right to say this. And he does have some points. I don't necessarily agree with it either, Champ. But there is a point to make there. There's something to think about when he says that.
He's in the room saying this. Where we always talk about being in the room. He's in the room. He's not knocking on the door on the outside saying it. So it matters.
He's not yelling it. Yeah, he can say right. He can be right in the room, and Inoue can hear him, and Inoue can pay attention because he knows who he is. I'll say this. I probably first met Shushu when he was maybe 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah, he's been around forever. Yep.
The fact that this is a grown man with a world championship just blows my mind. I'm freaking old, man. Like, that's crazy. I remember this kid with belts bigger than him. He was wearing these little belts in the amateurs, and these belts are too big for him to carry. And he's carrying like a handful of them on his shoulders. I was like, how does he even stand up? He's got too many belts because he would bring them everywhere. What I'm getting at is that Shushu has loved boxing ever since I know him. And his enthusiasm and passion for the sport continues to just expand itself. Like, this is him not just looking for the big shot and obviously looking to get a big payday and all that. It's also his genuine love for wanting to try to continue to pursue greatness, his genuine love for trying to get the biggest moments possible. This is why you started doing this when you're a kid, and you had all these dreams, and this is why you always had this. It was a cute chip on his shoulder when he was a kid, because he was a little kid and he was doing it. But now it's a serious chip, but still a mature and poised chip. I
was going to say, it's not just a passionate enthusiasm he's being very intelligent. The way he's moving his chess pieces. The kid's playing chess. He's been learning. Yeah. Yes, he's been passionate about the sport. He's been involved since he could walk, but he's watched how this sport and business moved, and he's playing it like a fiddle.
Yeah, and he's done all the things in his life to, get the best benefit, sign with a major promoter, move to Vegas from New York so he could get the best training possible, because, the New York scene in boxing isn't what it was like when I was coming up, or even when you were coming up, right? So
I was at the very tail end.
A lot of us, you get the sparring on the West Coast now, and
I left too. I left when I was 10-0.
Yeah, and Shushu wound up going, and Carrington and wound up going. So, I don't know if this is going to wind up resulting in him getting a shot at Inoue. It's a good possibility because Inoue's fast running out of opposition. It's difficult to find guys that test him. Nakatani could change the whole game here.
Yeah.
I mean, you could easily just switch Nakatani and Inoue's name if you're Carrington, because he's going to be looking for the biggest fight possible. So if Nakatani knocks off Inoue, he'll just be looking for Nakatani. And he could say the same thing about Nakatani if that's what he believes, right?
And either way, bring him to the Garden, just like Shushu said.
I will say this, guys. I hate to burst everybody's bubble, but there's a reason guys like Mayweather never fought in New York. The taxes are too high.
Yeah, the Garden's expensive.
The greatest fighters of the generations definitely fighting in Madison Square Garden, to where it was a part of a sort of a rite of passage. Those days are over, cuz. I mean,
but dude,
I'm going to talk like Guido. Those days are over, cuz.
Everyone for everywhere else wants to fight in the Garden, though.
I hear you. Until your taxes are 6- and 7-figure differences, and then you're like, you know what? I want to fight, but I don't want to fight that bad.
Well, we got a question here. Matt Borgerson sent this one in. So with Ortiz leaving Golden Boy abruptly, does he end up paying a severance fee from his contract? How does this in any way help him with the Boots fight? Join us in the super chat, by the way. Read your questions on air.
Well, you don't know if he's leaving, number one.
Well, first of all, we don't know that yet.
And then number two, the severance package or non-severance package would be decided by the arbitration judge. They would be decided in the litigation.
Again, this is all going to come down to the nuts and bolts of the contract. But if the grounds for Ortiz to leave, which we're not saying he is, and none of these reports have said that in as many words, it depends what the grounds are. If it's a breach of contract from the Golden Boy side, there's probably not going to be any kind of money going back and forth, especially from Vergil to the promotion. But again, these are things that we are not privy to and probably never will be. And maybe after the fact. Yeah. But yeah, there's no saying, like you even said it, Champ, but there's a good chance that Oscar and Vergil, Golden Boy Promotions and Team Vergil Ortiz comes together and makes this fight. It's still possible. We're not throwing everything out.
And he's trying to get the DAZN deals. You said getting on TV. He's trying to get back on DAZN.
Yeah.
That might,
and
might
that's what
solve
we were
everything.
talking about earlier. If Golden Boy winds up with a major TV contract,
He can remedy all this.
You remedy all this. I think you know, like you said earlier, money fixes everything, right? So you get the exposure, you get the money. Not only do you possibly fix things with Ryan and Vergil, now you may even attract other big stars to your stable.
What's the number one reason for a divorce?
What?
Money.
I
Yeah.
was going to say cheating.
Nope.
But,
No,
it is not. Infidelity
no.
is not.
Infidelity is
Statistically, no.
Right?
It is
See?
money.
It's money.
So what you saying? The money leads to the infidelity?
Probably a lot, maybe, but money is
infidelity
number
may be the
one.
way out. Money's the issue, and then infidelity is the way out. But if the money comes back in, maybe we have a happy honeymoon.
Guys, you know what's one of the best piece of advice I ever heard, the best statement about life? It said, money can't buy happiness, but it can buy a boat big enough to pull up right next to it. I had a rich guy tell me, he goes, money can't buy happiness. Buy a boat, you can pull up right next to it.
I've heard money can't buy happiness, but poverty will make you miserable.
Poverty doesn't buy anything. It's very, very true. Got another question. Once again, Matt Borgerson, give us a shout on Super Chat. I don't think we see Inoue at 126. I'd imagine he'd at least rematch Nakatani should he lose, or if the fight sells as well as we expect it to. Or look at the BAM Avenue next with Nick Ball gone and Shushu being a little bit green.
Yeah, I mean, he's
By
got
the way,
some
good question. Very
He's got some good
educated
points.
question.
He's got some good points. This is just Shushu shooting his shot, but yeah, those are all viable things, and
A little seasoning, though, for Shushu,
maybe even
maybe.
less
Couple more
risky
fights?
because Shushu's bigger.
Yeah.
So Bam is smaller, Nakatani's smaller, and is a bigger name. Bam is smaller and is a bigger name, so bigger reward, less risk maybe than Shushu in that way.
Yeah.
Because Shushu can fight, and I'm not saying
He can punch, too.
Shushu, and he can punch a little bit. I'm not saying Shushu. Right now you make him. Oh, he's better than
skills-wise,
Nakatani. He's better than
Bam
Bam.
is-
That's not what I'm saying. But Shushu's world class, definitively world class, and he's proven it thus far. He's improving every fight, and he's bigger.
Yeah.
He's bigger, which is always and Inoue's already been up several weight classes.
In a way, small for 22.
Yeah.
Yes. We've seen
Right.
him. We've seen him on the other side of the
So
side of the
naturally,
advantage.
Shushu likes his chances and he wants his chance of greatness, but Inoue's going to have a lot of options.
Inoue is the kind of guy that what's going to beat him is timing. And I don't mean timing of the fighter. I mean timing of his career.
Father
he's just-
Time's undefeated.
Yeah, because he's just
Or too many weight classes up, like
Too
Ray,
many
Rob-
weight
like Ray
classes.
Robinson.
It's another timing situation because, if he has it in his mind that he's going to fight in 26, because he has gone on record saying that I'm going to fight at 126, but he also said that's going to be his last weight class. And he's the kind of guy. I mean, he's Japanese. What he says, he does.
Remember they were talking about
Him and Gervonta.
Oh, yeah, you knew I was going there, right?
People would ask me about
Shameless.
that, and I would shoot it down so
What about-
fast. It was like, what do you
ask you
stop
about
it.
that? Espinosa was like trying to chase it when he was on Showtime. He was making public statements. It's absolutely shameless. I don't know. But then again, are you surprised?
But
seeing where that went.
as you said, Inoue having all of the options, not a lot necessarily in his weight class, but around his weight class, and when you make that move and what guy moves at the right time, crucial over the next stage of his career, Chris. There's no other way to say it. What will the Nakatani fight tell us? Obviously, we'll break it down as it gets a little bit closer, but what will the Nakatani fight tell you maybe about his future? Because he has run in, Neary dropped him. Obviously dominated the rest of the fight, but as he moves up, we're seeing the vulnerabilities of his all-action style. What does the Nakatani... Cardenas hurt him?
Depends on what
Cardenas
happens.
dropped them. Yeah, no, and that's like I know I know we hate doing it on this show. We're putting the cart before the horse, but I don't think we can look past Nakatani at all. I know Nakatani did not impress his last fight. I know that's wearing on everyone's
that guy's
mind.
rough too.
That guy was very rough,
Yeah.
and it's just
Was Pizarro his name was or something? That guy,
Yeah,
I forgot
out
his
of
name.
nowhere.
We shouldn't forget that guy's
Some
name. That
dude,
guy,
and
that guy
yeah.
was rough.
we need to be careful about looking past that. I don't think we should because we were so excited about this matchup. We finally get it, and they're going to be on the same card together to move towards each other. They both get the win, hopefully, and then Nakatani has a subpar performance, and now we're like, all right, well, what's Inoue going to do next after he beats Nakatani? It's not a foregone conclusion. This is the fight, and they could fight multiple times if it is a good fight. So there's a lot to discover on the Nakatani fight, and we're not going to know until then.
All right, so got a special guest joining us. What about his boxing knowledge, everything he brings in? Breadman Edwards, great coach. Once again, a great boxing mind. Don't know how much of this discussion you heard, man, but I got to bring you in on it, talking about the monster Inoue and his next step. No matter what happens in the Nakatani fight, but so many great fighters come around that division. What's your thought on it, man?
I'm a big fan in a way.
Yeah,
I
think
think
we all
he's,
are.
I think he's special. You know, I do. I think he's still in his prime, but I think he's on the other side of his peak, which is a little bit different. Um, action fighters who are punchers who, they need a lot of energy and high volume. When they get in their early 30s, this is the around the time where they might slip a little bit. I've been watching him for years, and I think he's a little bit on the other side and a little bit undersized for 122 because he did start out at 108. But man, if that guy was 147 pounds, boxing history might look a little bit different because there is a size bias in boxing. But he's a special fighter. I'm a big fan of his.
Another thing, when we talk about the relationship between promoters and fighters, Jai Opetaia is saying publicly, Eddie Hearn is not my mate. He's not my friend. He's been dragging me through the mud, obviously promoting very much his relationship with Zuffa, about that breakup between promoter and fighter. I'll get to Breadman in a second. Chris, your thoughts on what he's saying and really solidifying his partnership with Zuffa. What's your thought?
Well, we spoke about this yesterday, Champ.
Yeah.
You had heard some things in Australia about Jai and his marketability and whatnot, and then Eddie has been coming out and saying similar things. But yeah, listen, this is promoters tend to do this. When you're on the same side as a promoter, they talk you up, and as soon as you step over the line, then it's down. So Eddie just wearing his promoter hat. He's also Eddie Hearn is at ends with Zuffa and Dana, so they're butting heads. So that's another fighter that's going to their side. So Eddie doing his promotional thing, because again, I spoke this about Eddie. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. Eddie seems to have personal relationships with some of his fighters. Jai doesn't seem like to be one of those guys. So he has stepped over the line. So in Eddie's mind, he's an enemy.
But this idea, Breadman, I got to ask you, because to Chris's point, when Conor Benn stepped over the line and signed a one-fight deal with Zuffa for a reported $15 million, he kind of went, man, that really hurts. It sucks. I'm not sleeping well at night. It said, of course, Dana White, using words about vaginas to describe Eddie Hearn about his behavior concerning that step over. But with Jai Opetaia, it's more, he never sold, I didn't need him. The language and the verbiage, very, very different, Breadman. What do you think of it?
Honestly, I didn't read it or hear it. So I don't like to speak on things I didn't hear. I didn't hear Eddie Hearn say anything about Jai Opetaia, but I have been looking forward to seeing him because I think he may be the best cruiserweight in the world, but we just, he hasn't had a chance to prove it. So I've been looking forward to seeing him, but I didn't even know that him and Eddie had a falling out.
Let's see what Zuffa can do with Jai.
Huge.
This is the point that I think Jai is making is, okay, Eddie I did see a quote where Eddie said, I lost money on every Opetaia fight I promoted, and like I said, I heard some things in Australia where he doesn't sell well, but maybe that is something that maybe a company like Zuffa can, calibrate better, can balance out better. This is Dana White has been called the best promoter in the world by Max Kellerman, and I tend to disagree, but nonetheless, this is a chance to show it now because Jai is a phenomenal fighter, one of the best in the world, a top 10 or 15 pound for pound possibly, right? Would you guys agree?
Yeah, probably 15.
So, and he's not been marketed maybe, or he's not getting the notoriety possibly that a guy of that level should be getting. So this is Jai getting a chance to now change to a team that is promising a lot of things, changing over to a team that is saying a lot of things about themselves, but also promising a lot of things to Jai. So let's see with the this is sort of the litmus test for Zuffa, because you have a guy now with all the potential in the world, but he's not selling the way he needs to. Okay, well, make it right. Now you got a chance to make it right. It's not Conor Benn, who, like I said, his popularity way over exceeds how good of a fighter he is. For me, it way over exceeds it. So popularity at this point matters a lot, and then you got a popular fighter. But with Jai, you're gonna have to do a job now. Let's see how good of a promoter you actually are, or if you're just like everybody else. Because Jai can fight, and Jai, there's a product there that has a lot of potential, and he's bona fide world championship and one of the best world champions in the world. So Jai is optimistic from what he's saying, right? From what he seems to be saying about his future with Zuffa. Let's see if Zuffa lives up to the hype now. Jai is the perfect litmus test for Zuffa to see if Zuffa is going to live up to the hype of what they're saying, or if they're going to be like everybody else.
I agree, Paulie. I agree.
I was always fascinated when I was at the WWE with when an athlete who could do a lot of stuff in the ring, right? They had great balance, they had great time, they do all the moves, they could do everything. And I remember hearing backstage, well, we don't have a character for this guy, we don't have a spot for him, because they have characters that they build rivalries with different guys, and well, we really don't have a spot for him. And I remember thinking, whose fault is that? Isn't that your job? Doesn't he do everything he needs to in the ring? He communicates with the fans, he does all this stuff.
Job,
well, we really don't have a spot for him. Like, well, it's almost like Gary Oldman's one of my favorite actors, right? I love Gary Oldman. When Gary Oldman's in a movie, you write a part for him. He's that good. The fact that you don't have a part for Gary Oldman, well, that's a scriptwriter's problem. That isn't Gary Oldman's problem. Yeah. I always wondered that. When Bob Arum talked about Terrence Crawford, we couldn't make a start, we lost money on his fights, and you had a pound for pound great. Yeah. Whose fault is that we couldn't make money? I know it's a tough question, but when you say, well, we lost money on Jai Opetaia, well, he's laying guys out. He's a pound for pound fighter. He's doing his job. He's doing great. Is it his fault or your fault that we lost money on him? Well, I know it's a complicated question.
It is complicated. And some guys are more marketable than others, and there's less work to do.
It's not my fault.
Again,
I'm knocking
the Conor
guys
Ben
out.
situation, Conor's marketable for a lot of reasons, but a big reason is because the father, okay? Yeah. I'll say the term promoter in boxing is heavily overused because
it's also a misnomer.
It's a misnomer, exactly, and that's what I was gonna get at. Promoters aren't really promoters because they typically don't promote anything. They just book fights. They're more what I would call booking agents than promoters, and
fair.
And so when the promoter is a very deceptive word to use. Now, some promoters do create a lot of stars, and you brought up Bob Arum. Bob Arum is probably responsible.
Probably the star maker of
probably creating the biggest stars of the last 30 years. You figure De La Hoya out of the amateurs, Cotto out of the amateurs, Mayweather out of the amateurs. Yep. So that company does have a track record of building stars. Even Crawford out of the amateurs, despite the fact that some of these guys became bigger after they left Top Rank, like Mayweather and Crawford. But nonetheless, it's something that I'm curious now about Zuffa, because Zuffa has come into the game saying they're gonna do it differently. So are you gonna be booking agents? Or are you gonna be promoters? We're gonna find out if Dana White was the guy he's hyped up to be because of the UFC's popularity, or if that was just because there was no other competition in MMA, and so you're the only game in town, and people like MMA, and that's it. So because this was always bound to happen. This was always going to come to a head, because in boxing there's a lot more competition than in MMA as far as rival companies. So now you're going to have to be a promoter. You're going to have to be a real promoter, not the word promoter, especially in the case of Jai. You're perfect. Again, I will repeat, it's the perfect litmus test. You have a fighter who has it all. Make him into a star.
This idea of Breadman, I want to throw it back to you, because when, in the 80s and 90s, right, when I was a kid, a young adult, certain weight classes were transition weight classes. You might move through it to get somewhere else, but the stars were at 47. The stars were at middleweight, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. 140 pounds all time. Aaron Pryor didn't get the love he deserved because 140 pounds. Not a lot of people stopped at 140 pounds. He did. The difficulty in making a star at a typically non-star weight class, and cruiserweight has been one of those where great heavyweights have moved through cruiserweight. Not many have stayed in cruiserweight and made their name there. Does it add to the difficulties, Breadman?
I think it does. I agree with Paulie. This is the perfect litmus test. The two best cruiserweights we've ever seen with our eyes are Holyfield and Usyk. And both of those guys moved up to heavyweight before they had 20 pro fights, because that's where the action, that's where the money is, and that's where the stars are born. Michael Spinks skipped over cruiserweight and went straight to heavyweight. We have never really had a superstar at cruiserweight. But Jai Opetaia, Opetaia is a good-looking kid. He's a knockout artist. He fights in an exciting style. He has an undefeated record. Zuffa Boxing has something to work with. And this is, I don't want to say if it's going to be difficult or not, because they may turn him into a star. I'm optimistic. I want everybody to succeed in boxing because I love boxing. But this is a true test. Can you turn an Australian or New Zealand fighter? I'm not sure which one he's from.
Oceania, we'll just say.
New Zealand.
Yeah.
Okay, with the Pacific Islander heritage,
Yep.
which is, may also have some, difficulty turning that into a star. This is a true litmus test. I'm very curious to see what they do with him, because I've been looking forward to seeing this kid. Like, every time I see him, he looks good. He gets knockouts. He fights in the action style, and I was looking forward to a possible unification with him and Zurdo Ramirez. So, because I suspect he might be the best cruiserweight in the world, but he hasn't had a chance to prove it. So I'm interested to see, because they have their work cut out for him, with this division alone.
Well, we have another super chat. Matt Borgerson, you guys failed to consider that a majority of the UFC fandom, YouTube channels, consistently bash Zuffa and boxing. How can you convince a fan base that is so anti-boxing? He says, I don't think it'll work. Chris, you and I, because you started out in kickboxing, I started out in MMA, and you went to boxing. We've been around all combat sports. One of the things about Rico Verhoeven fighting Alexander Usyk that we kept saying is kickboxers already watch boxing. It doesn't draw in it's boxing fans don't know who Rico Verhoeven is. You're alienating one side that's a lot bigger to draw kickboxing fans that already watch boxing. MMA and boxing, there isn't the crossover you would think. That there is sometimes there isn't. Does that lack of crossover lead to a difficulty in success for Zuffa?
I'll put it this way: with kickboxing, boxing, and I always get asked this because I'm still a big kickboxing fan. And I watch the sports all the time. You and I talk about it all the time. And I've never walked into a kickboxing gym or an MMA gym and didn't know exactly who I was, because I'm a boxer and they watch boxing. Kickboxers watch boxing. But in our country, this side of the world, which is very important to make it in fight sports, as we know, everyone's like, oh, why doesn't kickbox make it here? Because there's two factions. There's boxing and there's MMA, and there's very little crossover. There's not enough market value or room to encompass another sport that kind of goes in between the two. Because it creates two very distinct factions, and they kind of go head-to-head in terms of the boxing fans and MMA fans. They're very different groups of people. So the crossover is going to be really difficult. And I don't know if that's their plan, it's not a very good plan. I think, but I don't think that's actually their plan. And you guys use this fight saying the Opetaia experiment is a litmus test. I don't. I take this as a full head-on attack on Eddie Hearn for Dana. And it's become personal that he's going to say, like, you couldn't promote this guy. This guy's got all the goods. Watch us do it. But he also has a never-ending bag of money. So he's going to be able to do that. And he's going to create this. He's going to bring this guy out there. And he's just going to do exactly what he's been doing for Opetaia, which is just knocking guys out. And there's no name fighters in cruiserweight for American audiences to understand. So now you're bringing in these new people who are watching the Zuffa. You're going to see Jai Opetaia, and just like you said, Breadman, good looking, super fit, super dynamic offense, knocks people out. He's knocked out his last 6 guys in a row, and they were all undefeated too. But you didn't hear about any of them. You don't know who any of them are. So they're just going to put him out there, let him do what he does, but they have the marketing arm, and they're dead focused on this guy because their talent pool right now is very low. Their roster is very, very small, and cruiserweight is a very small pond. So I think they set themselves up in a very promising position to show what
you just described. There's a litmus test then, because nobody else can promote cruiserweights. Nobody else is able to promote Jai. So they set themselves up.
You're thinking too short term with these guys. They don't have to prove anything. It doesn't matter. They just have to punch down, and that's what they're doing for Eddie.
Get Jai fights. Jai was already fighting. Jai wasn't not fighting. Jai didn't have a problem.
Yeah, but now you
got to do more for Jai if you're going to change it.
Yeah,
what's the difference with what Jai was doing? Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Do you see the marketing arm?
Well, that's the litmus test. Then you got to turn him into a star. That's what he deserves.
Listen,
that's what nobody else.
The reason it's not a litmus test is because if it fails, if it's not a star, it doesn't matter. They're going to keep rolling through. This is a machine. This is a machine.
You can keep being a machine, but fans will realize you're the same.
It would help.
Yeah,
in a big way if it helps.
You're going to jam it down our throats, dude. It's going to come and come and come.
But you're the same old machine. Boxing has existed for over 100 years. It's not like it's the new MMA thing, you know?
And
that's what I'm saying. So it's the same old machine. Nothing changes, which, okay, it's fine. You can hang around and don't just people are gonna realize that you're not actually changing anything. It's the same old machine,
But then
which is fine.
But then it falls
Boxing
into
fans are
another
into
promotion. It becomes another promotion,
Yes,
and then
but
we have
it
another
becomes its
promoter.
own league. Now you're the same old machine, but in your own league.
If it fails that much, they'll change. They'll change the rules.
So, Breadman, I have to ask, because you're the only guy in here, I think, was old enough to remember the way I remember when Mike Tyson was coming up, right? His first 20 fights until he fought Quick Tillis, right? And actually had to go the distance. I was a kid. I was young. But I remember going, man, look at this guy, look at this guy, look at this guy. And like the old boxing kids going, yeah, who are those guys he's knocking out? I went, I don't care. He's laying guys out, that visual impact.
Yep.
And you remember it too, Breadman, was like, I don't care who that guy is. This guy from the Catskills is knocking dudes' heads off on, at the time, ABC, ESPN. You turned on TV and went, man, who is this kid?
There was nobody Mike hadn't fought yet. You know, it's not like today where you're like, oh, what if he fights this guy? What if he fights this guy?
On his way up, it was just a spectacle.
Of course it was. But eventually Mike
right.
was knocking out everybody. At the time of the Mike Tyson era, the late 80s, up until the Buster Douglas fight, I couldn't think of any. You can't think of anybody that he didn't fight. Maybe Witherspoon, but Witherspoon got beat by Bone Crusher. That was the reason he fought Bone Crusher instead of Witherspoon.
Yeah, please.
Paulie's right. Tyson was knocking out a lot of contenders and hardcore guys like the Jesse Fergusons and Marvis Frazier's. You know, Tyson's resume is kind of an enigma. It's a little different. He was in our face about every 6 weeks, and he was beating
every 2 weeks in the beginning.
And he was beating contenders and recognizable. I don't want to say trial horses, but like gatekeepers, like Quick Tillis, Jose Ribalta, Jesse Ferguson, Marvis Frazier. These are all guys that Tyson fought before he won the title. Mm-hmm. So it was a little bit different, although it wouldn't have mattered to me because the spectacle to see somebody that fast and that ferocious with the one-punch knockout power, you know, you would watch him fight anybody. But the contenders that he was fighting, they were recognizable.
What I'm curious about, though, are you shooting for that same, if you're Zuffa, are you shooting for that same visceral kind of, man, look at this dude go to work? And I know Tyson was something special. He was up here.
Oh, he already does that.
What?
He already does that. Opetaia is a beast.
That's what I mean. Like, I don't want to necessarily make the Tyson comparisons yet, but are you shooting for, Breadman, that visceral, watch this guy rip a dude's head off every week? Is that what you're shooting for?
I think we are. And he's fighting a guy by the name of Brandon Glanton.
I was going to say that, Brett, I don't want to cut you off, but let me cut you off for 1 second. You put him in with a guy he's going to go to distance with. Yeah. So you did the opposite. You did the opposite just now. So that's what I'm saying about the way they promote. What did they just accomplish? Go ahead, Brett. Go finish your thought.
I think. Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah, we hear you. Yeah. I just wanted to put that in there, but go ahead.
Yeah. He's fighting a guy named Brandon Glanton, and Glanton is a puncher. He has an exciting style, and he's going to be right there for him. So I feel like this is perfect matchmaking if we want to see that train wreck that we're all talking about.
Well, Brad, maybe you cut off. You didn't hear me. I think this is the wrong guy because Brandon's not been stopped. He's durable. You want to put him in against guys who he's going to blow away like Tyson and say, oh, well, we're gonna keep watching him wreck guys. Glanton's a guy who's going to go to distance.
Yeah, but we're gonna see more of Jai. We're gonna see how dynamic he is because Glanton has one speed. He's stuck in one.
Listen,
gear.
if he stops Glanton, it's a big thing.
And he might. I actually think
you try too hard to stop Glanton, you're gonna get hit on the chin. Glanton can punch.
He can really punch. He's super durable and he's really fit. He's very conditioned. Very conditioned. Stopping him would be a really impressive feat for Jai Opetaia. But regardless, we're going to see him, even because I think it actually is going to go rounds too. At least I think it's going to actually go the distance. But we're going to see more of Jai, instead of just blowing a guy out and running him over with a highlight reel knockout, which he has plenty of. We're actually going to see how dynamic his offense is. And like you said, Jimmy, you don't always have to like completely blast the guy's head up. But you'd be like, wow, this guy's offense is really special because Opetaia does have that. He's very athletic. But to your point, Champ, I actually do think it's going to go the distance as well. So we're going to have to see this for 12 rounds.
Now, to make another Zuffa comparison, Paddy Pimblett on the way up, right? Very popular fighter from Liverpool, had the Paddy the Batty, crowd chanting. I was asked about him on his way up, and I go, gets hit too much. I go, he's in a league where he should be crushing dudes, and he is. He's finishing them. on the way there, he's getting dropped, he's getting hit. When I see someone get hit on the way
he
up,
was telling everyone, I got a chin, you can't knock me out. No one can knock me out.
That's not a good strategy.
When you see the levels are not being dominated the way they need to be on the way up, then you realize at world class level, this guy's going to struggle.
This guy's going to have trouble.
And boxing the same way. As he's coming up the ladder, there's levels where you're expected to dominate. You're not expected to be really tested, even if you're winning. If you're winning and you're struggling a little bit or getting hit too much, then people start to say, well,
isn't that how you did your career growing up? When I was coming up, it didn't matter who I was fighting. It didn't matter what level of guy I was. If I got hit by a guy, then I was like, "Oh, that wasn't a good night."
Yeah.
Exactly. So when I was coming up, because every level step up was supposed to be, I'm supposed to be ahead of this. I'm supposed to be ahead of this. I'm supposed to be ahead of this.
Well, that's the mentality you're supposed to have. But of course, Pimblett, if he was saying, Jimmy, to take your point, he was saying, "Oh, nobody can knock me out," because what is he going to do? He's not going to defend it saying, "Oh, I get hit too much." So
I have great defense.
He's got to figure it out in another way. He's got to sell it to you in a different way. Nobody can knock me out. This and that. But yeah, it was. Like Champ said, you have to push the people that move your career to push that button to say, okay, we got to step him up. He's too dominant. You got to step him up. He's too dominant. Well, you'll get there. You'll get there faster if you keep dominating.
It's the ProBox TV method.
Yeah.
The system is if we set you up in a 50-50 fight and you blow the guy away, all right, we got you at the wrong level. We got to ratchet it up. Yeah. If we set you up with a fight that's supposed to be tough and you blow this guy away or you dominate, all right, we got to keep ratcheting it up. Your job as a prospect, as a contender, is to completely blow everyone's expectations out of the water every time.
So that you can get to the big money fights faster.
Well, another super chat, Matt Borgerson, bringing up exactly what we were talking about. Jai has been hurt in the past 3 fights at some point. What does it say he won't get hurt in this fight and stop? I think he's a bit reckless at times. Just what we were talking about.
Bro, most offensively minded guys get hit.
What do you say? That I have stolen from you shamelessly on other broadcasts?
Gunslingers get shot. He goes for it. He throws combinations. He's explosive.
Gunslingers get shot, dude.
I'm telling you, bro. If you got to be careful. This
Brandon can punch.
Brandon can punch. We've had him on ProBox. He's one-dimensional. He's one speed. He's durable as X can get. He's physically strong.
Great conditioning.
And he'll knock your block off if he hits you on the chin. So I'm telling you, okay. So Borgerson with a good point.
What do they say? FAFO?
Yeah. F around and find out. Oh, yeah. What I'm curious about is I've done a thing at home, and I do this all the time. I'll go to YouTube, and I will pick a fighter, and I will literally watch their whole career. From first fight to last. Hagler. I'll go back and watch every Hagler.
On your hand. I thought you had kids. What happened?
I know, right? I put the kids to bed, and I sit there and I watch.
Yeah, you don't sleep, huh?
It's very, I don't sleep a whole lot. But
you hang
right
upside
now,
down while you do it?
Because we've been talking about him, I've been going through De La Hoya's career. Because I remember it. I was a kid. I saw him. But I was like, man, let's go through his career again. A machine, but he did tend to get, we talked about this, he did tend to get tagged early in the fight.
He get dropped a lot.
But
Campanella, the Paisan, dropped him.
Right.
That was left hook, right? They tried left hooks.
But he was in a lighter weight class. He was cutting a lot of weight.
Way bigger than everybody,
Way bigger than everybody. At cruiserweight, where there's some thick boys that can hit, are those defensive vulnerabilities a little bit more troubling, Chris? Yes or no?
So I say it all
the time. See how I go all the way around the world?
We're covering like all my sayings right now. No heavyweight has a good chin because everybody hits too goddamn hard. Yeah. Cruiserweight, they hit just as hard, and they're actually usually faster.
And they're cutting sometimes.
Yeah,
so
remember Chris Bird moved down from heavyweight to cruiserweight, and he just got blown out, and it was just like, well, whatever.
I think Sean George beat him.
Yeah, but it's just like and I've heard people say this, like the cruiserweights generally most of the time hit just as hard as the heavyweights, but they're just actually a little quicker. So you have to get even better. It's a really dangerous, difficult weight class to be in. And Jai does cut a lot of weight. He is really big for cruiser, but so is Glanton. I don't know how much weight he cuts, but he's big for the weight class.
Yeah,
he's not. He's like a
short.
He's like a bridger.
He's like a fire hydrant.
Yeah.
He's very physically strong and stocky.
But again, man, he's durable, he's dangerous, and he's mean.
Yeah.
He's really mean. I think, this is
a little bit one-dimensional. The Jai you expect to have versatilities, but if Jai doesn't fight disciplined, he's
there's openings.
It's a risk.
Yeah. Well, the thing here, and you talked about it, is if you're matched up right, you move up. If you're matched up right and you give us that performance that we've been looking for, you move up. If you give us that performance we're looking for and you lose, we'll still come back.
You button and you get up.
Well, we have a show coming up March 21st. We've talked about the main event, Lester Martinez versus Emmanuel, over and over and over again. One thing we haven't done a whole lot is talk about the card underneath that. And I'm looking at it right now, and I've been looking at it for a few days. I always spend some time studying beforehand. Gentlemen, this is a really good card.
What else is new, Jimmy?
Dude, full of undefeated fighters. What I'm curious about, when you look at Joshua Anton, 12-0, 11 knockouts from Palmdale in those 12 wins. Lolo Harris, who jumped on our air a little bit before, 11-1, 7 knockouts. He's out of Rialto, California. Some great California fighters there. Chris, I got to ask you, who stands out to you? What matchups are you looking forward to most, man, when it comes to the Young Bucks?
That Anton fight, that's the Kujatil, right?
Yep.
Oh, man. So I've called a lot of his fight, the Uzbek.
Yeah.
He can really fight.
22-5.
Yeah, he's super solid. He had a real tough fight with Louis Collazo.
Yeah.
When Louis was still very viable. I've called a lot of his fights on undercards.
So he's been around.
Yes, he's been around for a while. He was on the cusp, like right on the cusp of getting a welterweight, junior middleweight title shot. He's never been stopped at 54. He did get stopped recently, but it was at middleweight, out of his weight class. He's a 54-pounder now. Lost to the likes of like Cody Crowley, Katsurakis, the really good Greek fighter at 54.
Shows up to fight though.
Katsurakis can really punch, and he went distance with him. He shows up to fight, and he's an Uzbek. Those guys are all talented. They can all fight. They all have big amateur backgrounds. Very, very solid, very durable. This is a real test for Anton. Anton looks really good. He really does look the part, but this is the kind of guy. He's, I know we always say banana peel.
Because it could expose some deficiencies, I guess.
Yeah.
If there are any.
He's more than a banana peel. He's a landmine. He's a dangerous guy.
Talk about Lolo Harris a little bit. Been on our air before. Very talented guy working with Bomac. What happens when we're interviewing, if you didn't see it, we're talking to Bomac and Lester Martinez. Lester Martinez showed up. We talked to him. And then, hey, Lolo Harris is here. Do you want to sit down and talk to him? He seems focused, ready. And still at that point, Paulie, I'm going to peel back the curtain just a little bit. People always say when you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. It's comparatively true, but this is a job, and how much you work at it defines how well you're going to do, but you still have to find the joy in what you're doing. Lolo Harris still has that joy in what he's doing. He's young in his career. He's excited to be where he is. I like that discipline.
He's young, and it's almost like you're talking to a kid who's having fun.
Yes.
You know, when you speak to
exactly.
him. You know, he's well-spoken and just has the energy to him when I hear him talk in interviews. Like he enjoys learning every day. You know, he enjoys getting better every day. He looks forward to try to get better every day. And the only way you get better is if you work hard at it. But he enjoys it because it probably doesn't feel like work to him. You know, he's passionate. Seems like he has a great relationship with Bomac, the trainer. And there's a good energy there in Omaha at Bomac's gym. And he's taking it all in and soaking it all in. You can tell he's absorbing that kind of energy and loving it, you know? Yeah. So, and each time we've seen him perform, honestly, Lolo Harris has looked the goods. He's looked the part. So if this kid at his age continues to mature and improve at the rate he's improving, you know, he'll be a contender in not so distant future.
Very likable kid, and you know what's funny at this stage of this level, when you see guys like him that are popular, meaning they're ticket sellers, it speaks directly to their personality because the people who are coming know you. There's people you could touch. You know, once you get past that local and you start getting to selling more tickets in bigger areas, that's not it's not the personality so much or the person that you know. It's just like I like what I see from this guy, the way he talks, the way he fights, this and that. Lolo, man, he brings people out. He brings a lot of people.
Yes,
he's gonna bring a lot of people out. That speaks to his personality, and like we said, he's a very personable guy. And man, can he fight!
When you look at, and I tell you all the time in MMA, it's very rare to get to the elite level of sport and not be at least affiliated with a major gym, right? American Top Team, AKA Jackson Wink. There are a million of them all over the place. But this idea that you're at least going there to get your sparring, you're affiliated with those coaches and with that team. And part of it is you're with killers and you realize I can hang with these guys. If I can hang with these guys, then I can definitely hang with the guys I'm going to see in whatever MMA promotion I work for. Working with Bomac, for a guy like Lolo Harris, once again, 12 fights in, you know the work is tough, Paulie. You know he's working with killers. He's working with very, very experienced guys. What does that do for your confidence level? What do you get out of that coaching if you're Lolo Harris?
Well, you get, you know, the intelligence and the learning curve is higher, you know, is a higher level because you have an excellent trainer with you, but you also get the great sparring where the learning curve is also at an excelled level there too because you're experiencing the learning firsthand in the ring. You know, you're in there with a high level of competition, sparring every day. When you train with, you know, in a lion's den full of lions, you know, it's going to automatically force you to be sharper, more alert every single day. Because listen, it's in boxing, a bad day in the gym is getting beat up. So, you know, in order to avoid that, you have to show up ready, prepared every single day, go to sleep early every single night, you know, wake up in the morning, you know, feeling good every single day and get through the workouts every single day, all while making the progress necessary. And you have these these tools at your disposal. You have a great trainer, you have great sparring, great fighters, and a good energy overall in the gym. So I think it's a solid situation for a young fighter on the come up like Lolo Harris.
And boxing, different than MMA, like there's pockets of places like that. Like MMA, that's all their gyms are like that. It's a very team aspect. Boxing's not really like that, but we've had pockets over the years, like the Kronk gym with Manuel Stewart, Freddie Roach. With Wild Card,
Lamont Roach and his DMV team, they're
guys,
like family there.
Robert Garcia with his gym in the RGBA, Miami in general because there's so many gyms around. Vegas just because there's so many gyms there, and New York used to be like that. It's no
Gleason's
longer.
was like that.
Gleason's was like that for a long time.
Might still be like that in LA,
Yeah. So we boxing has that as well, and it's just killers. Even to a degree in Brooklyn, like with Andre Rozier and his group, also the Cops and Kids. Now we're seeing a lot of guys coming out of the Cops and Kids program. It's always got to be a system because that's the only way. Everybody gets better together. Everybody the competition is necessary for everyone to step up and to really grow. That was a big difference for me. Is once I left New York and I got into the hubs like Las Vegas and California, Robert Garcia's camp specifically, that's when my level just started to exponentially rise.
Before we were on air, we were talking about the Mexican food. I'm a connoisseur of Mexican food. I love it. I'm from Southern California. People go, why are the tacos in California so good? And I said, because you have a bad taco place, you ain't going to make it. You won't make it. If you serve bad pizza in New York, you won't make it. You're out of business.
Competition.
There's too much good pizza to have bad pizza in New York. I said, there are too many good tacos in California to have bad tacos. Similar kind of thing in a gym. How do I know he's good? He wouldn't be here. Yeah. You wouldn't be making it.
You get run out of good gyms.
You get run out in 10 minutes if you don't have balls. If you walk into an MMA gym, a kickboxing gym, or a boxing gym that is reputable, and you don't have balls to stand there and trade with or spar with or move around with or survive the workouts, you're out of there. You're not going to make it. It's survival of the fittest, right? And not just that, for Lolo Harris, seeing Crawford get that big Canelo fight, that atmosphere, the press is in your gym, people taking photos, there are people taking video of you working out with guys. I remember I was with Tito Ortiz when I first started, while he was champion, right? It's like 2000, and he was huge. He was bigger than life. People came into the gym all the time, and I'm rolling with Tito, and people are taking video and stuff. You get used to that big life, and man, I want to be there. I want to be that guy people are looking at. What does that do for you when you're coming up, just like you did, Paulie?
Well, it's the same thing. You have a chance to live out your dreams through these people and almost, I always tell people this way, I always describe it this way: you're more passionate when your dreams are in front of you than when they're behind you. Like you may still be doing it when your biggest goals have already been accomplished and you're on the other side of your prime, you're on the other side of your peak, but you're not, your emotional and psychological perspective of it isn't the same. When your goals are in front of you and you've not yet accomplished anything, there's a savagery, there's an enthusiasm, like I was talking about with Carrington earlier. Everything's in front of him still. He's living out the dream, but it's being accomplished little by little, so it's motivating, but it keeps you disciplined because your dreams are right there and they're still in front of you. You're still chasing them all. So there's a passion and enthusiasm that really is hard to describe unless you're living in that moment, and so living in that moment and then doing it under the training circumstances of a high level gym consistently, it allows you to give you that little comparison to these guys, they've accomplished what my dreams are. I'm training alongside these guys. You get to spar them. You get to see the way they are. You also get to compare yourself how you do in sparring, and then maybe it'll increase your confidence. Maybe you get to take some tips from them. You got a great trainer who's training them as well. It is a very motivating part of your career, but it's also a very happy point in your career. And boxing is not easy to make it, but when you start to make it and you start to get closer, that enthusiasm, it only helps you grow more.
Well, I got another card to go over. A great one, March 13th. We're going to break it down right after this. On Friday, March 13th, ProBox TV returns to Kissimmee, Florida for another action-packed contender series. In the 10-round main event, ProBox TV alumnus and fast-rising world-ranked light heavyweight Najee Lopez takes another stern test against Mexican top contender Manuel Gallegos. Up-and-coming Dominic Valle will take on battle-hardened veteran Eduardo Ramirez of Mexico. Saturday, March 21st, ProBox TV invades the NOS Event Center as Lester Martinez and Emmanuel Ali battle for the WBC World Super Middleweight title. Palmdale's Joshua Kevin Anton battles the Uzbeki Punisher. LA is in the house as Anthony Too Quick Cuba defends home turf against Brooklyn's Wesley Farrer, while Sam Contreras takes on Cesar Cantu. You see right here, the ProBox TV big fight breakdown. Let's forget it. Let's call it the big card breakdown. Chris, you and I can talk about it. We talked about, once again, the main event quite a bit. Do a drive bev in a second, but the card, March 13th. Najee Lopez, the main event. Manuel Gallegos, of course. This idea that he is on the cusp of greatness at 175 pounds, always improving every time, but he's almost fighting, Chris, a phantom opponent, which is the next guy, the next big name at 175, which we've said over and over, a very talented division. We talked about Beterbiev, a possibility for Najee Lopez. That ended up falling through, but you're on that short list of people they're going to call for the big fight. Before we get into the rest of the card, which is fantastic, against Manuel Gallegos, what are you looking to see him prove Najee Lopez on the 13th?
Well, this is when you're that contender, that the prospect turned contender, you enter this stage where every fight now becomes a world championship, because the dream is to become a world champion. That's what you're working towards, and a loss at any point here is basically you're saying goodbye to that world championship, at least for a while. You're going to have to take a detour. So for him, he's got to look at this as if it's his world title fight every time, each and every time. And he has to go out there and perform in that way. That means fighting a near perfect fight, being able to make adjustments on the fly if necessary, fighting a disciplined fight, showing up in perfect condition and executing. At this point, execution is everything, because when it's time for the title fight, when it's time for that neck and neck type of situation with a top contender or number one contender or a defending champion, mistakes can't be made.
Yeah. Of course, somebody who knows very much about the style Gallegos is going to bring. Coach Robert Garcia, thank you so much for joining us, man. When you look at Gallegos taking on Najee Lopez in our main event, we talk about the talent of Najee Lopez, what he's able to do offensively, what he's able to do defensively, but really his crowd appeal so high against Gallegos. What does Gallegos have to do to kind of derail him in this fight?
Gallegos, this is the fight of his life. He knows the position Lopez is at, so he wants to take that position. So I think this is going to be, he has to have the best performance of his life to pull it off and to take that spot, because, Lopez is also, just like Chris was saying, he's in a position where every fight has to be his championship fight, because that's what's getting, if he has a bad performance or, he loses a fight, then it's all over. He's in a position where every single fight has to be the best performance of his life, or else he's going to be in trouble. And I think Gallegos wants to take that spot. Gallegos is going to train like never before. He's going to be in shape. He's going to put up the best fight of his life to try to get that position.
Well, of course, Paulie Malignaggi had to take a little detour, had to leave us, me and Chris, in studio by ourselves, but we got enough knowledge here without Paulie. So when you look at this card, you see it right there. 7 undefeated fighters on this card. Prominent name there. Got to go with Dominic Valle, 12-0 from Florida, from North Florida. 7 wins by knockout. Eduardo Ramirez, his opponent from Sinaloa, 29-5-3. Now, 14 knockouts in those 29 wins, so not necessarily a knockout puncher, but God, the work rate of a lot of those fighters from that region is so high. This is a big test for Dominic Valle.
Huge step up. And the guy who's been on our air and has been in with super tough competition over the years. And yeah, it may not be the biggest puncher, but look at his competition. Look at who he's been in the ring with. So you've got to look at it like that. Dominic Valle, who's definitely been stepped up each and every time out, aggressively so, because that's how ProBox TV works. Cutting your teeth on ProBox is not easy, because we want guys to be ready when they actually get their opportunity. But this is certainly a big step up, even more so than we were used to seeing. And I'm curious to see. Dominic Valle he's a high contact guy. He fights out of that island Puerto Rican style where he's going to throw a ton of punches. He's looking to hurt you. Great hard jab, body shots with both sides. A lot of pressure, big for the weight class. He gets you on the ropes and unloads. I'm curious to see if he can do that against someone who's going to put up as much resistance.
Now, he lost to Jonathan Cardozo on our air. Also lost to Isaac Pitbull Cruz. So this is a guy, coach, who has taken on, as Chris said, some really great talent. He knows how to be successful at the elite level, knows how to fight at the elite level. This idea that the experience, the toughness, that's going to be hard for Valle to overcome at this point in his career.
He's a tough, very experienced fighter. It's not going to be an easy fight for Valle. Me as the trainer, manager of some fighters, I would have taken my time a little bit more. But look, But look, he's fighting on ProBox. We all know we're always put up good fights, and I got to give a lot of respect for Valle for taking this fight, because it is going to be a difficult test. But if he passes, then that says the future for him. He's going to, he's on the road to one day becoming world champion, because this is going to be a real test. Like I'm telling you guys, me personally, I would have maybe taken a few more fights before this. But hey, if he believes in himself, his team believes in himself, his promoter, ProBox TV, let's do it, and let's go have a great performance, because he's ready. He has the skills to do it. The experience is too much, I think, but man, he does it, then there's no question he will be a world champion.
Robert, I was going to say, I'll tell you this. Dominic is the kind of kid who's going to ask for this kind of fight. Like, if this name came up, Dominic was like, yes, that guy. I want that
beautiful.
guy.
That's what that tells you, that he wants to become a world champion by taking those type of fights, because it is a real test.
But does there have to be somebody making the face you love to make? Like, dude, this is. Does there have to be someone going, okay, a Robert Garcia in your corner going, I good? I know you want to. You want all the smoke. This is a tough one, dude.
I was this guy, so I get it. My matchmaker used to always say, he was like, Chris is the easiest guy to match because he'll fight anybody he brought up. And I would ask for more, and they'd always be like, all right, pump the brakes, until finally I was like, no more. I'm gonna stop fighting. Give me a big fight or I'm out. I'm done. I tried to buy myself out of my contract, everything. I was like, you're not gonna step me up. I'm not gonna be a local guy. I'm world class. Give me a big fight. I need a big fight. And
very true.
Yeah, and I pushed myself into that position, forcing those people who told me, let's pump the brakes to make the move. A lot of times the fighters are a lot more positioned to get themselves to where they want to be, much more than they even know.
And also,
and look, looks like Valle is one of those too.
Yes,
Chris. Valle is like that, which I respect, and I admire, his decision to step it up like that. We have everything. I have those type of guys too that don't even ask me who they're fighting. They'll fight anybody.
Yep.
I have a few of those. But then you also have those ones that start asking questions. Do you think it's too soon? How many rounds? Am I the A or B side? When they start asking questions like that, you always have to be careful.
What I'm curious about, and the history, you've been part of them yourself, Coach Garcia, proud Mexican-American. Puerto Rico versus Mexico is always special. It doesn't matter whether it's New Yorican, whether it's an Islander guy. It's this idea that culture, that cultural clash is so important. In this case, via Puerto Rico, of course, his opponent, Ramirez from Mexico. How special is that? It doesn't matter what level it is, right?
It's always great, man. When we have those fights, a tough Mexican versus a great, talented Puerto Rican, we're always going to have great fights. There's no question. The fighters don't have to be worldwide famous or world champions. You have a Mexican versus a Puerto Rican, it's a great fight.
Robert, yesterday we were talking about Salvador Sanchez and Gomez. Speaking of the Mexican-Puerto Rican matchup, we were asking what was the biggest Mexican win? We were like, that was it.
That was it. And I think that's probably what started the Mexico versus Puerto Rico rivalry, because that fight was unbelievable, man. Yeah, one of my favorite fights and my favorite Mexican fighter of all times.
Dante Benjamin, Cleveland, Ohio, 13-0, 9 wins by knockout versus Angel Lozano, 8-0 from Pomona, California, 6 knockouts. This is a great one on paper. It's a great one, period, the way you look at it.
I really like Dante Benjamin. He had a tough night last time out, and he did really well, but he had a really tough opponent in front of Money Powell III. That was a really impressive performance.
Coin flip fight to a lot of people.
Yes. Yeah. Super tactical, very, very high boxing IQ. This fight, I don't think it's going to be that way. I think this puncher from California is going to come and bring it, and we're going to have to see Dante make those decisions with even less time to think. So this is a nice test, especially coming off the last fight where he had another very tactical guy in front of him. Now he's going to have to put his money where his mouth is and fight.
The idea that Dante Benjamin can box when he needs to, but can step in and fight, that's a very dangerous combination. Coach, you know anything about his opponent? Do you have this idea of whether or not Dante's going to have to use that boxing skill or move in a lot more? This fighter from your neck of the woods.
Look, when you're in those type of fights and your opponent's tough, your opponent is going to come to you, you have to have your best. And if it's good boxing skills to be able to box and outbox your opponent, or if it's to have to exchange punches and try to knock him out, you have to be ready. And that's the type of fight we're going to get.
The issue with this fight with Dante Benjamin, we know about the steps up, we know about the experience. We know about ProBox TV too. And Chris, it takes a fighter a while to get used to undefeated fighter versus undefeated fighter comparatively early in their careers. A lot of fighters aren't used to that.
True, but I think guys who have been on our air And people have been watching because I think the secret's out. If you're fighting on ProBox, it's going to be a tough fight. I used to have a lot of guys when I was first started commentating for ProBox TV a couple years ago. Guys, hey, get me on the card, get me on the card, get me on the card. And these are good fighters. I'm like, yeah, what kind of fight are you looking for? Because you're not going to be the A side. They're like, what do you mean? I'm going to be the B side? I'm like, no, there is no B side. You're just going to be in tough. It's going to be a 50-50 fight. If you're looking for a win, don't come here. If you're looking to fight and be platformed, that's what we're here for. So guys like Dante who have been on our air, guys like that are coming up and have watched ProBox TV, they know exactly what they're getting into. There's no easy fights. You got to look past the numbers. If you happen to get a guy whose record looks a little funky or upside down, yeah, go look at who we fought. Because there's no such thing as an easy fight if you're going to be in the main card. Dante Benjamin, I believe, knows that. He figured that out last fight when he fought a very tough Money Powell. So he's in tough once again. And I think everyone who comes to ProBox at this point knows what's up. You're going to have to fight.
Well, when you look at, of course, more fights to break down, not just on our air, but fights coming up in the boxing landscape. We'll get to them right after this.
Saturday, March 21st, ProBox TV invades the NOS Event Center as Lester Martinez and Emmanuel Ali battle for the WBC World Super Middleweight title. Palmdale's Joshua Kevin Anton battles the Uzbeki Punisher. LA is in the house as Anthony Too Quick Cuba defends home turf against Brooklyn's Wesley Farrer, while Sam Contreras takes on Cesar Cantu.
And we're back for our big fight breakdown with the minds to do it. That's right, Coach Robert Garcia alongside the champ, Chris Algier. Well, this is a big one. WBA and WBO junior middleweight champion Xander Zayas' team has made an offer to IBF 154-pound champion England's Josh Kelly for a unification showdown at Madison Square Garden, Puerto Rican Day weekend in New York. That's all I'm going to say. Chris, what do you think of this proposal? What do you think about it?
It's not surprising. These guys have been talking on Twitter. Xander came out, being the gentleman champion that he is. He said, "I would love to compete against you for your IBF title, put mine on the line." I think he actually offered it to Puerto Rico, but New York is pretty much like little Puerto Rico at this point. So, but also being able to fight in New York is a dream for a lot of British fighters. So, and Josh Kelly, I believe his game. He came back and wanted the fight as well. And it just seemed like these guys were orbiting each other in a way that the fight made a lot of sense. I'm not sure who Josh Kelly's mandatory would be, but if you have a chance for a unification, you generally go for it. Even though, and I got to put this out there was a lot of talk prior to the Murtaza-Liev fight where Josh Kelly was a big underdog. Yep. They said, Eddie Hearn had said that if Josh Kelly is to win this fight, he's already agreed to fight Boots in his first defense. That's obviously out the window because of the unification opportunity. And good on Xander Zayas for pushing to make this fight because his tweets move mountains these days. And if you're a champion with a mouthpiece, and Xander is now, he was able to make this fight. And unfortunately, Jaron Ennis is going to have to sit on the outside watching from the outside looking in as usual. But yeah, I like unifications. I like the fight. I like Xander. I like the way this is playing out. Yeah, what do you think, Robert?
Yeah, what are the X's and O's, Coach?
I love the fight. I love the fight, and I love the fact that Xander Zayas is looking for those type of fights, for the unifications. He's not wasting time. He's not taking any easy route out there. He wants to fight everybody. And look, he's so young. He could easily be waiting and taking his time and getting easier title defenses here and there. But no, he wants those big fights, those big dates for Puerto Rico. He wants unifications. I got to give nothing but love and respect for that, and look, and when it comes to his team, his promoters, he's got the best team behind him, best matchmakers, one of the best promoters. Even though they still don't even have a TV network or anything, they're still putting big things together. They're still doing these big events. They're still making those big fights, which tells you a lot about how big they are, man. It just it tells you, that you don't have to be the biggest name out there, because right now Vergil and Boots, they both have to wait for them. They have to wait for Xander and Kelly to fight to be able to get a shot, because these guys are going to unify. That's bigger than anything else. So then they get one of those, either Vergil or Boots, especially if they don't fight each other. These guys are not even champions. You know what I mean? That makes a big difference.
Robert, you're going to love this about Xander. I called a lot of his fights are Top Rank. And again, you were speaking about Top Rank and their ability to move their guys and how fantastic they've been able to operate in terms of moving Xander. And it was the fight before his title fight. This was probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. And it was at the Garden. And his team was in there, and they were saying, they're like, we want Fundora. We know how to beat him. And this is before Xander had fought any kind of guys that were at a world-class level. And I was like, man, that's really early on. I'm like, these guys are they're being a little aggressive. And then he just goes on to systematically dominate and win and go title after title, looking for these guys. It's been such a systematic approach.
It's 23.
It's amazing. Yeah. The way that they've been able to operate and maneuver through the minefield that is boxing. And you said it great, Coach. You know, they've got a great team, obviously Top Rank behind them, but also it's his father, his trainer, his management, Peter Kahn. Got to give him some love because this kid is being moved masterfully. Granted, he's going out there and doing what he's supposed to do. He's been bred for these moments, but the way they're targeting title fights and getting them, when you've got guys who arguably are the top of the division.
Exactly.
Arguing and not being able to make fight and sitting out, and Xander's just picking up title after title. Bing, bing, bing. I mean, it's been wildly impressive to watch him and his team operate because they're doing everything right.
If you look at 154 pounds, probably the best weight class in boxing, one of our super chats. We need that Mario, I'm assuming Mario Barrios versus Val Saint at 154 at ProBox TV. First thing I thought is, no way Barrios goes anywhere near Blast Val Saint. Wow. I gotta say, if I'm Barrios' people, nah. I don't go anywhere near Blast Val Saint. That dude, Robert, I hear you laughing. Val Saint can bang. That is a talented dude. Yeah.
But I'm laughing because Barrios will do it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I bet you he will.
Yeah.
He will, but it'll be a great fight, but he will. I
know. We're missing the guy who always bashes Barrios, so I'm gonna give him some Barrios.
Where's my water?
I'm gonna give no. I'm gonna give some Barrios. I'm gonna give some Barrios love and respect.
Say it one time so I can get some water. I'm a little dehydrated.
The kid is tough as hell, and he's willing to fight anyone. You're not gonna meet a nicer guy in the sport, but listen, I mean, he's done a lot in his career, and he's been willing to step in and fight. Dude, he fought Gervonta Davis with a weight clause. He fought Keith Thurman. He fought Manny Pacquiao. Of course, you're gonna want to fight Manny Pacquiao when he's 47, but still, it's Manny Pacquiao. Right. Ryan Garcia giving him the opportunity. The kid fights everybody. So that fight's not out of possibility, I don't think. Because Val Saint, you haven't seen him anywhere near that level in terms of opposition. You might think, he's not ready for him. This is a good time to get him. I don't know.
His talent is off the chart. We know physically what the guy can do.
It's
incredible.
Yeah. He's a super athlete, and he's got a great amateur pedigree from being a Haitian Olympian, but like, bro, pros are different. Robert, I'm sure you got to agree with me a little bit. If you haven't been in, you don't know what you don't know.
100%, man. You know, we can't. You know, when you're a boxer, you're already a champion. You fight those type of names. I think you have to have respect. We have to respect fighters like that. And Barrios is not the only one. There's many more that a lot of people don't give credit. A lot of critics about their career. But man, you know, if you're already world champion and you face some of the great names out there, you got to have respect for those people, for those athletes.
Another name I'd like to throw out personally, you've seen him recently on air, Francisco Veron. Argentine Olympian, incredibly talented 54-pounder, but ready for that breakout veteran guy. Robert, I'm going to go to you. What do you think of Francisco Veron? Mario Barrios, Argentina versus Mexico?
Oh, my God. All he needs is that opportunity. Veron needs that opportunity. He needs to get that call to face any of those top 154-pounders because I know him personally. I know his dad. They've trained in my gym. They sparred in my gym. They're great people, but not only are they great people, they're tough. They're tough as nails, and he'll put up a great fight against any of the 154-pounders.
Coach, what is that Argentinian style that these guys come with? It's like awkward, crazy gas tank, super tough, scrappy, just scrappy. Oh yeah, hungry is a great word.
They're hungry. They want to be great. They're very strong physically too, because mentally, physically, they're very strong, and that's all they need. They need to be hungry, mentally strong, physically strong, and that's it.
And they always have like a weird offbeat rhythm. It's like it's different. It's their own very unique style.
Maravilla. I remember watching him box and just going, how does he do that?
You watch them and you're like, that's the Argentine style. It's there.
Yes.
All right, so going back real quickly, of course, 154 pounds. By the way, appreciate the super chat. That is a great question. This Taylor versus Zayas, the idea of Taylor moved so well against Murtazaliev. It was angling, moving, throwing big punches, that sneaky uppercut. His footwork and his timing was very, very good. But Murtazalia looked a little stuck in the mud that night. You're talking about maybe the weight cut started to get to him. He had a lot of time off. Can he repeat that kind of success, or is it a different strategy in a potential showdown with Xander Zayas?
Well, the thing about Josh Taylor in the Murtazalia fight, Josh always had these skills. Josh is very talented. He's a very good athlete. He's
great amateur.
Great eyes, good feet. Good gas tank, his ability to maneuver and see things coming. His reactions are very good. In terms of athleticism, he's always had that. That was never the question. The question was here. What did he have in his rib cage? And when the going got tough, would he be able to stick it out and make it through? And I think he really got over the hump in the Murtazalia fight. Because one, he came in as the underdog. So mentally, psychologically, he's pressed, right? But he goes out there, he goes to perform. And I expected him to perform well in the beginning, but I expected him to fall apart late. And he almost did. He got dropped.
Knocked down.
He got dropped twice. Looking like he was brought to that moment again to quit. He was brought to that moment to be broken, because he did. He got broken as a welterweight. He got to that moment again, but then he got over it. I think we're dealing with a whole different guy now. Josh Kelly, on the back end of this win, the world champion Josh Kelly is a different guy, because he's gotten over being broken. He was at that question again, and he got past it. So I think he's an entirely different guy. Now, in terms of fighting Xander Zayas, whole different animal. Xander is young, he's hungry, he's big, he's got a very difficult style to deal with. He's a boxer mover with a great jab and a good body shot. I mean, he's not a one-punch guy, but he is a 12-round fighter. And he's a championship fighter. So it's a very difficult style. And when you have a guy with the size advantage, the way that Xander does, but also is very quick, because Murtazalia was never really fast.
No, big, scary, but yeah.
Big, strong, walk you down kind of guy. So Josh, I knew was going to have real success early. Xander's a different animal. You're going to have to offset his speed and length. And, I mean, Josh has the talent to do it, but can he figure out that with enough time to get the win? It's a very tough fight.
That timing style, Coach Chris just touched on it. Zayas, very, very fundamentally sound, good technique all the way around. But Taylor did some really unorthodox stuff, some timing techniques against Murtazalia. Does that work against the style of Zayas? You're the coach, you know all about it.
I think it does work, but you know what? I think it's going to work more for Kelly is that the confidence he got by beating that monster that everybody thought, oh, he's too dangerous, he's gonna knock you out. By beating him, I think just the mentality, the confidence he got, that's gonna be the big difference there.
When I look at the age of Xander Zayas, 23 years old, look at the fan base. Puerto Rican stars, got a lot of fans behind him.
Good-looking, well-spoken.
Good-looking, Chris, what do I always say? If he can fight, he's going to be a star.
The thing about Xander could fight before all of that.
Right.
That's the thing. Xander's been around since Xander was like a multi-time national level junior champion. Like he's been all over. Xander's been on my feed for 10 years already, and that means he was 13.
Yes.
Like he's been around that long. And I've seen him grow up through the gym. It's funny. I used to spar with him. I used to call him the incredible growing man, because every time I saw him, he's bigger and bigger and bigger. I called him incredible growing kid because he was young. But every time I saw him, he was bigger and stronger. But I mean, the skills were always there. The confidence was always there. And like I said, he has been bred for this. This is what his whole life has been working towards. The number one thing that impresses me about Xander, because I've been so close to him and seen him in the gym, discipline. Seeing a young man with the discipline that he showed me when he was 18, 19, 20 years old, I was like, all right, this kid's going to have a long, illustrious career, and we're just at the start of it.
Is he the guy in a 154-pound division that is red hot, stacked full of talent? Is he the guy that can clear it out? That's my first question. Look at his age and his talent. Is the only problem at 23, you're not filled out yet. And a lot of times
he's pretty full.
Right. You move up in weight class before you have a chance to clear everything out. Does he have those skills as good as 54 is? Could he be the man to clear it out and be the guy at 54?
Look, I think Xander Zayas has all the tools to be one of those greats, especially being from Puerto Rico, where he has a huge following, like Trinidad did, like Poto did. I think he's already a superstar, and just to become a bigger superstar, especially if he beats Kelly. But look, there is some tough fights out there for him. There is some very dangerous fights out there for him that could wait a little longer. He's already unifying. He's already proved that he'll fight anybody. He's already proving that he wants to fight the best. But there is those two Vergil and Boots, that might be a little too soon for him. He's only 23. I would wait a couple years. Those fights are still going to be there. Let him develop a little more. Let him mature a little more with his body, physically, mentally too. Even though he's very positive, what you just said, Chris, about it, his dedication since he was a kid and all that, I know because I've known him for a long time too. I know his manager who tells me everything about him, and I know all that is true. But he's only 23. I would wait a little bit longer to face those top two guys in Vergil and Boots, and look, they'll just be bigger and bigger fights 2-3 years from now.
Robert, I'm making a prediction right now. I think Vergil and Xander are going to see each other at 160.
Ooh.
I don't think we're gonna see them at 54.
And it's gonna be huge.
Yeah.
It's gonna be huge when it happens.
That'd be a great Mexican-American Puerto Rican showdown. That would be gold.
I don't think Xander's going to be as long for 54.
Yeah.
I think they're being very aggressive because of that. They understand
Yes,
where he is.
I agree.
And they're getting as many belts as they can now. While, you talked about the top dogs, Vergil and Boots are obviously having trouble making that fight happen. He's just scooping up titles, being really, really smart. But I don't think he's long for 54. But all those fights are still going to be there at 60. Vergil's not that long for 54 either, it seems like. I saw him the other night, man. He looked strong.
That's a big boy.
He looked real strong the other night. So, I predict that fight being higher up.
Let's flip this around. This discussion I think is very, very good. Boots Ennis left out in the cold again, probably. So we're talking about, Josh.
Years. He must be freezing.
Yeah, this idea that Taylor versus Boots Ennis both match him. Oh, that's an easy fight to make. Now he's on the outside looking in. You say it all the time, Chris. Belts still matter, and Boots doesn't have one. Is this just an indication of how you can get frozen out when you don't have that gold around your waist? Because unification trumps he might be the best guy at 54, Chris.
He was frozen out at welter and then finally got a belt once Spence and Crawford moved on, because he was kept
problem.
He was kept out of that ecosystem.
Yeah.
They had all the belts, but again, they relinquished to move on. Boom, he picks up his title, and then he moves up to 54, and once again, he's the odd man out. And it's really unfortunate because there's so many good fights to be made, and I'm appreciative of the two top guys who don't have titles who are taking the chance to risk at each other. Risk their current positions, and that's Vergil and Boots, looking to make the best fight possible. Even though it might not be the biggest opportunity time for it, it's the best fight that can be made at 54 when there's amongst a bunch of killers. But it's just, belts matter. Belts matter, and obviously that might be one of the hangups of this fight, and why it's not actually happening yet is because neither one of them has a title yet. Meanwhile, both of them are going to be multiple-time world champions. I would throw money on that investment now. I'm bullish on both those guys. So, it's an unfortunate part of the sport. Sometimes we don't get the best fights. Actually, a lot of times we don't get the best fights. But I'm trying to be optimistic for this one that we will see it at some point. But I'm not really the most optimistic guy when it comes to boxing business.
Coach Garcia, I have to ask you because your guy, Vergil Ortiz Jr., is a guy who wants the smoke. As Chris just said, he's willing to fight a guy who doesn't have a title to make the best fight. So your guy isn't that guy. But is it easier to avoid a Boots Ennis? Doesn't have a title. He's incredibly dangerous, incredibly skilled. Is it easier because he doesn't have that title as a negotiating chip, even though your man, Vergil Ortiz, doesn't seem to care?
Look, with Vergil, he doesn't care. He wants the best fights out there, and right now, Boots' fight is the best fight out there, and we're pushing for the fight to happen. He's pushing for the fight to happen, and hopefully it does. Things are getting closer and closer. So we'll know something in the next couple of weeks. But that's the type of fighter Vergil is. He wants to fight the best out there and the biggest challenge. When it comes to Xander, he could already be a unified with three fighter with champion with 3 belts, and maybe do what I'm saying. Where maybe not get into those big fights yet, and maybe move up in weight, like Chris was saying. He moves up to weight. He knows these guys are coming to 160 in the future also, and he might have another big chance of becoming champion and unified champion at 160, because 160 could be a little open right now. So that might be their plan. Maybe he fights Kelly, moves up to 160 already, because he is a huge kid. He's a big boy, and he's growing. He's only 23. He's developing. His body's growing. It's going to be harder and harder to make 154. So he goes to 160 and waits for these guys to make it there.
Yeah, him and Abel Ramos Jr. Not Abel, the other one. Is it? What's his name, Robert? Abel.
Yeah, I know you're talking Ramos. Yeah, from Arizona.
But Abel is the uncle. That's the welterweight. What's is it?
Jesus.
Jesus. Thank you. I was going to say Jose. Jesus Ramos Jr. I think that's a good fight. I think Xander goes up there because Jesus just got the 160 recently.
Yes.
And he's been looking good. He's one of those guys who's right on title contention. Janabek, I would assume, is getting stripped. You know, he had a couple belts. Those are going to get released. You get a Ramos Jr. and a Xander Zayas. You get a Mexican-Puerto Rican matchup at 160 for a title. Both young, hungry guys. That's a really good-looking fight.
Well, we got a lot of boxing knowledge here, of course. Coach Garcia and the champ Chris Algieri. Well, got some mailbag questions for him. We want your knowledge. Also, in the super chat, jump in, ask a question. We'll answer it on air. But it is mailbag time for Coach and Chris when we come back.
On Friday, March 13th, ProBox TV returns to Kissimmee, Florida for another action-packed contender series. In the 10-round main event, ProBox TV alumnus and fast-rising world-ranked light heavyweight Najee Lopez takes another stern test against Mexican top contender Manuel Gallegos. Up-and-coming Dominic Valle will take on battle-hardened veteran Eduardo Ramirez of Mexico.
It is time for the mailbag. That's right. Your questions coming in. Once again, jump in on the super chat. Ask us one. We'll answer it right here. First one, so we're talking about the middleweight division. Let's start with this one. Coach Garcia, Chris Algieri. Is Sugar Ray Robinson the greatest middleweight of all time? And if so, where are Carlos Monzon, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, and the other greats at 160? Chris, I'll start with you. Middleweight division, by the way, some of our favorites right here in 160.
Yes, super hard to compare across eras for a number of reasons. One, the styles were different back then. Very, very different. You know, the styles you see in the 40s and the 50s is different than you even saw in the 60s and the 70s, and then the 80s and the 90s. It's changed dramatically in terms of intensity, round length. You know, championship level, 15 to 12 rounds, which we saw happen in the 80s. But even just the state of the art of boxing has changed quite a bit. Much faster pace, a lot more conditioning involved, higher level nutrition, training, all of that. Gloves are everything's. There's so many different things. Also size. Guys didn't cut weight back then.
Yeah.
You know, Sugar Ray Robinson as a middleweight was probably a 47-pounder.
Yeah.
You know,
he did his best work at welterweight.
Yeah, of course, but you know, he got bigger. I think he still weighed in the 50s when he was fighting out 60. He might have even been like the size of a modern day 40-pounder. And then you got a guy like Marvin Hagler, another one who was certainly bigger, but like he didn't cut a whole bunch of weight either. He always walked pretty close to weight and very different style. And Monzon was a monster, man. He was
Beast.
Absolute beast. Long, strong, aggressive, chin of absolute iron. I would have loved to have seen him and Marvin.
Yeah.
A Monzon-Marvin fight would be very interesting. Marvin's craftiness, I think, would probably be the difference. But yeah, you never know with a guy like Monzon, who was a killer in many ways. But yeah, it's easy to go nostalgic and be like Sugar Ray Robinson. He's the guy that pound for pound was made after. He's the best. But really matching them up and putting them in that hypothetical thought experiment of when they're in the ring, seeing him in the ring with Marvin Hagler, I'm like, I don't know. That's tough. I don't know. What do you think, Coach? I hate doing these things because it's just like it's a thought experiment because it's so different.
But the fans love it.
I know they love it. It's barbershop talk.
By the way, Monzon 87-3-9, 59 KOs, world champion, 1970 to 1977, 14 title defenses. Coach,
look, it's tough to even compare different eras like that. You know, when you have Marvin Hagler, personally, one of my favorites.
Yeah.
To me, I think he's one of the best middleweights ever, and I got him up there. And I also I love the way Roy Jones Jr. was fighting everyone. Man, you know, so to me, those are my two favorite. But with eras and the way they, the training they used to do before 15 rounds, the getting ready in the mountains and in the middle of nowhere,
running with boots on,
stuff like that.
Didn't believe in running shoes.
Man, they were raised different, man. They were different. They were just different. But me, closer to what I've seen more when I was growing up, man, I would go with Hagler.
62 3-2, 52 knockouts, world champion from 1980 to 1987, 12 title defenses, defeated the titles he faced: Vito Antuofermo, Alan Minter, Roberto Duran, Tommy Hearns, Ray Leonard. I mean, the names. Mugabe's not even on this list.
But I was just saying,
that was a
then there's
signature
the
win, too.
Mugabes and the Roldans of the world who are absolute killer punchers and super, super tough. And he fought them in their primes. And I mean, most people would say that he probably took the best out of Mugabe. Mugabe was never the same after Marvin. So who was a guy who could have been a multiple-time world champion himself? Yeah, it's hard to go against. Like Coach, like you said, if I see them in the ring together, how do you? I don't see how you beat a guy like Marvin. He could fight out of both stances. He could fight on the inside. He could fight on the outside. He was physically rough. He was big for the weight.
Can't be stopped.
No, you're not going to stop him. I think he would have much more trouble with Monzon.
Yeah,
because the power and the length. But even then, if there was someone savvy enough to do it, because that was the thing, Marvin wasn't a brute. He was very savvy, very, very smart, and he showed that in the Mugabe fight, where he was fighting a killer puncher who was tall and long and was a devastating knockout artist. And he boxed him southpaw, he boxed him righty, he finished him. You name it. I mean, Marvin could do it. He was a very special fighter.
Our era. Let's take a look at some of those, because some favorites there. Got to go with B-Hop in our era.
Yeah.
The consistency he had at 160 pounds. Big, physical, strong. One of the slickest, toughest boxers in history. We were talking about it yesterday, weren't we, Chris? You're like, it's a criminal. He had a criminal mind. It was this idea that he was, I've been to jail. I've been everywhere. I will do anything in the ring. His mental toughness kind of off the chart.
Jim Lampley said one day, he's like, what did he say? He's got the he's got the courage of a bandit.
Yeah.
Someone who's I'm gonna take it from you. And when you talk to Bernard, when you talk to B-Hop, he's very much got that mentality. He keeps that penitentiary mindset, which is why he's always in such great shape. Yeah. He's very regimented and systemized. And even his fighting, his boxing, and I always use him as the perfect example for an aging fighter, obviously. But if you really watch him, the reason is because he learned to adjust and figure out what he was and what he wasn't. As you change as a fighter, and Robert, you can attest to this, you've seen it with, I'm sure, plenty of your charges, and probably even yourself in your own career. You're a different animal throughout different stages of your boxing career. Like when you're young in your 20s, like there's nothing that you can stop. You can run through a wall. You'll get hit with a good shot. You get dropped. You get back up. It's like nothing. Don't even have a headache later. You're fine. You get up. Then in your 30s, you get a little bit different. You're not maybe you can't get away from the punches the same way, but you still got that timing. You still got that rhythm. You can still find that shot. Bernard was perfect at that, because early in his career, he was a destroyer, man. He could punch. He could knock you out. He'd walk you down. He was super tough. Then you saw him get into his mid to late 30s. He started to get a lot more savvy. Started to slow the pace down. Then he started going up in weight. Same thing. Yep. Slowing the pace down. Making feints be part of scoring the round, because there wasn't so many punches being thrown. Yeah. So you have to actually judge that footstep that he made, that slip, that roll, the way he made you miss. When you got a guy who's able to control the space in the ring, being a true ring general, and turns punchers like Kelly into holding their guns in their holster, it's a thing of beauty.
One thing I just got to add is, where are the Hopkins, man? We don't have those right now. No. I want to see those right now, man. We don't have those right now. Those type of fighters like Hopkins, man, we just don't have them in boxing right now.
The artists. Where are the artists?
Yeah, it's very, very true. But a very good super chat that just came in. I got to ask you guys. This is from Daryl7777. Appreciate you. Whose record will be broken first? Tyson winning the heavyweight title at 20, Foreman at 45, or Hopkins winning a world title at 49? So we got one young record, two old ones. Robert, let me ask you first, Coach. Which record gets broken first, if you think any of them will? Once again, Tyson winning a title at 20, Foreman winning the heavyweight title at 45, or Hopkins winning a world title at 49?
Well, look, I think there's one record could be broken pretty soon this year. If Mauricio Suleiman makes Floyd Mayweather.
You took it out of my mouth. You took it right out of my mouth.
for the WBC world title.
Right.
'Cause Mauricio could do it.
Yep.
If he does that, it'll be broken.
But that's one of those things, Chris. You're a nutrition guy. You're a fitness guy. You talk all the time about it. All the age longevity records, they're more vulnerable these days simply because we're getting so much better at the longevity. Fighters don't fight with the regularity they used to fight of even 20 years ago. So all the age records, I think, are more vulnerable. We're seeing more fit and healthy 45, 46, 47-year-olds.
Absolutely, well put. Also, nobody's want to hear this. The drugs are getting better, so it's going to make you keep you younger, keep you performing at a higher rate. But even like if the young records are tough because it comes down to timing. Because we have Moses Atalma, who in a weaker heavyweight division would have had a title shot already and probably would be world champion. So Mike Tyson, when he got his title, yes, Mike was an absolute phenom and deserved everything he got. But the division, heavyweight division at that time, not nearly as deep as it is now. There were no Alexander Usyks walking around. So yeah, that one could be susceptible too. I agree with you. The age one will probably go first, but in a weaker era, Thomas is probably breaking that record. But even that is been hard to make because we have such a talented heavyweight division at this point.
Well, this is breaking news. So I'm going to ask you guys about it, have you both, and it's in our super chat. Someone brought up, and this came up on my phone. I glanced at it, didn't see, I saw it, didn't know if we could integrate it. It was Hamza Mir 15. Can we talk about Eddie now signing Dana's guys? If you don't know about this, Tom Aspinall, UFC champion, inks business deal with boxing promoter Eddie Hearn. On ESPN right now. I saw the headline. I didn't know if it was real. UFC heavyweight champion Tom Aspinall signed with Eddie Hearn's newly established Matchroom talent agency. The signing establishment of Matchroom's new agency was announced on Thursday in a huge move for both Aspinall and the British promoter. One thing I will say, being from the MMA side myself, contractually, there's no way he can fight for anybody but the UFC, period. End of sentence. I don't know how this works. Please, Eddie Hearn, give us a call. Tell me how I'm wrong because I want to know. UFC contracts, Zuffa contracts are so restricted. People always say, well, John Jones fights so-and-so. And I go, no, why not? UFC won't let him. GSP is still under contract. He hasn't fought in years, but he owes them X number of fights. You can't fight outside of the UFC's jurisdiction. I don't care if it's a grappling match. It can be an arm wrestling match. It can be in it. You're not allowed to do anything. I don't know how Tom Aspinall could fight for anybody else. Chris, what's your thought?
Well, first thought first is this is sounding more and more like high school. You take my girl, I'm taking yours. This is hilarious. But again, great point, Jimmy. Like your cooler heads are prevailing. I was thinking about the high schools thing. I thought that was kind of funny. But yes, in terms of being able to fight in other promotions, different sports, I went through this actually. I was in a legal dispute and was able to fight. I was gonna go fight kickboxing, just to stay busy, go make some money.
UFC won't let you do that.
No.
Yes.
No. My boxing, my boxing contract wouldn't allow it. So yeah, I don't know how you're going to compete in another combat sport, and I would believe most, if not all, boxing contracts are aware enough that we are in a multi-fight sport world where guys can make a lot of money going other places.
Hopping around.
This isn't the 90s. It wasn't like I could go, I was a 7-figure boxer, but I could go make 6 figures in a kickboxing fight on a weekend and fight 5 rounds. That wasn't possible in the 90s. Now it is. I can go, a guy can go fight in a bare knuckle and possibly grab six figures.
And you know where you had to do that in our day? Japan. You had to. You could go to K1.
For MMA, K1 too.
Go to K1 and make big money, but it was
you had to win the tournament. That was very tough.
It's very. I'm not going to get into the history of kickboxing, but Japan, you could hop over and make big money in other combat sports.
But I would love to hear the details of that deal and what in particular, how that could possibly work, and how it's not a breach, because that might be a breach on the athlete. I don't know. Robert, you've probably seen a lot more contracts than me for fighters. Have you ever seen any clauses including that? Because I know from my contract it had it.
Man, there's things written on the contracts where guys can't even ride a motorcycle.
I've heard about that. So, you can't ride a motorcycle. You can't ski.
No,
skydiving. I couldn't skydive.
Yes.
I was in there.
So stuff like that. So when it comes to Eddie signing
Aspinall.
Aspinall. I don't know.
Symbolic?
I don't know how. Maybe just a joke. Maybe they're just bringing it up as just to make more news. I don't know, because it just doesn't make sense. To me, it doesn't make sense. But hey, we never know. In boxing right now, the way it's going,
Eddie's not
anything
dumb
could
though.
happen.
Eddie's not dumb, so
No, he's not.
he's
He's
gonna
not.
know. He's
Smart,
gonna know
smart
that.
man.
He's gonna
Yeah.
know that you know. So whatever this is, I guess we'll get more details as it comes out. But hey, we're live, so we
Yeah,
get
no,
we get it,
it
literally.
popped up live. By the way, appreciate the super chat. I
Yeah.
came on my phone. I was like, oh, that's interesting, but I don't know if that's real. Super chat, appreciate you because we looked at it up here. So let's take a little bit of a shift. Not really a shift. You're talking about boxing history before. This week in boxing history, it was Ali Frazier won Fight of the Century 1971. Of all the fights of the century, this is the fight of the century because you had the first time, by the way, that two undefeated fighters had a claim on the heavyweight title and fought for it. First time in history, two undefeated fighters fought for the heavyweight title.
2 gold medalists too.
Two gold medalists, two guys who had a claim to the title, depending on who you thought was the champion. The social implications, the background, the pro-Vietnam, anti-Vietnam, pro-black power, anti-black power,
Religion,
everything.
Mm-hmm.
It was one side of a culture war versus another side of a culture war. For all of those reasons, I believe it's fight of the century. Robert, we know about your knowledge of boxing history. Is there another fight of century? Is this it?
Not even close. I think it is fight of the century. Not only for everything you guys already mentioned, but it's always, it's never, nobody, we're never gonna forget it. It's always gonna be talked about because of all the situations going on at that moment. I think there's, man, I don't see nothing breaking that.
And it's a time in history. And Chris, you and I talked about this sometime. And the example I used, I was at a wrestling tournament, and they said, all right, let's hurry up and get home so we can watch Bo Holyfield. It was the second one, I think. And where the
way
world
bigger.
stopped for big boxing. Now, you and I remember fights where the world stopped. I remember, it was like Vargas De La Hoya or De La Hoya Trinidad. I know I'm from Southern California, but there was nobody on the street
No, De La
during
Hoya
those
Trinidad
fights.
is humongous, huge.
The world literally...
Most Tyson fights in the 90s.
Yeah, but 1971, for this fight, the world stopped.
Yes.
And is it that thing of we'll never have another fight of the century, new century, but the world's not going to stop like that for anything. It doesn't stop for the Super Bowl. It doesn't stop for the World Cup. It doesn't stop like it used to. It stopped for this one.
There's too many things now. There's too many sports. There's too many things to keep people busy. There's no unifying anything anymore. There's no unifying sport, especially in our sport, in boxing. But in terms of the perfect display for an era, that's it. That is the fight of the century. That is the fight of the millennium. That is the fight of all fights. And for all the reasons we talked about, the implications of all the cultural and political waves that fight moved, the figure that Ali was and how polarizing he was. And
people forget that because he's beloved now.
Yes, correct.
They forget
correct. Yes, he was
how
hated.
he was hated and loved.
And
polarizing,
loved. Yes, polarizing is a perfect description of what Ali represented for that time. And you had Joe, who was just hard-working American, kind of guy, and you had Ali just thrashing him. You had the loudmouth, you had the Louisville lip, and then you had the
son of a sharecropper.
Lunch pail, go to work, grind it out, fighter. You had the power puncher versus the slick boxer. Everything. It had everything. It was a movie. If you told me that this was a script written, they couldn't have wrote it any better than it actually turned out. And the fight was awesome. Yes. And the fight was ridiculously good. They fought with vitriol. They fought with venom. They fought like they hated each other because Joe definitely hated Ali. I think Ali was more playing a role because he was so good at that. And his ability to talk himself into big fights, to get everyone to pay attention, the people who turned out that night. We spoke about, when you
Frank
look
Lucas.
at the pictures, the people around wearing mink coats that cost more than cars. Like it brought out the who's who of everyone. I think Frank Sinatra got his photography license so he could have a better view of from the ring to be able to take photos.
Was a photographer.
As a fight photographer for that. That's how powerful this event was. And I don't think we're ever going to get something like that ever again that's going to unify everyone's attention at once. And this is not the era of VOD like it is now. Video on demand. You can go back and tune in, whatever. You had to watch this live. You had to be there. You had to watch it. You had to talk about it. And I'm sure the entire world was talking about it. So, yes, in terms of everything from top to bottom, storylines, the characters involved. And Jimmy, I'm glad you brought up, undefeated, the gold medalist plus his heavyweight, because you forget about that because of all the other things around it. Because all we talk about, because it was a cultural revolution at that time, all we talk about is that part. But in actuality, just like nuts and bolts from the boxing perspective, it was the fight happened when it was supposed to happen. And recently I got a chance to go to Ali's training camp in Pennsylvania, and just the energy that was involved, that guy is still around. It's still in there. It's in the walls, it's in the rocks, it's in the stone, it's in the town. And a lot of it was centered around, this fight. So yeah, there's no question. This is the fight of all fights.
Coach, it's a cliche, and we use it all the time. Styles make fights. It wasn't just the polar opposite personalities and everything. It was Frazier bowling forward, loading that left hand, Ali trying to dance and move and a little bit slower with the time off, but using his footwork, and Frazier had no use for any of that. I'm taking the ring away from you. This was the Matador and the Bull personified. As a coach, how do you even overstate how dynamically opposed these guys were?
As a coach, I sit down and enjoy it. I'm not gonna. I don't see anything. One should have done this. The other one should have done that. I would have just enjoyed it because it was like we're saying, fight of the century, the best fight ever. We just can't miss that. I would just sit down and enjoy and watch two guys go at it. That's it.
Well, we have a super chat that I want to answer. It's Hamza Mir, 15, who talked about the Tom Aspinall thing, said, Tom will activate the sunset clause, one fight left. You're confusing two different things. The sunset clause is amount of time. It has nothing to do with a number of fights. If he has one fight left, that's not a sunset clause. He's just signed for that number of fights. Not all contracts have a sunset clause. Ngannou got out on a sunset clause. What I have heard, I don't know, I haven't seen them, is they took those out. They don't use them anymore because Ngannou was able to get out.
Beat once and I get beat again.
I got beat once, I'm not getting beat again. What a sunset clause is at a certain date or 5 years after I sign, it just goes away even if I haven't fulfilled the number of fights. They don't do that anymore because of that reason from what I have heard. So he can't always just wait out the contract like he used to. If he has one more fight left, he has one more fight left. Now, the UFC almost never lets you get there without something. It's very rare that someone's able to fight out their contract in the UFC. It's how Zuffa has done business so far, so we'll have to see. As it makes news, we'll talk about it here. But another piece of news, or a little anniversary birthday I want to get into. Happy birthday to Freddie Roach. What I'm curious about, since we have the knowledge here, Coach Garcia, where do you rate him in terms of the modern coaches of his era? Freddie Roach, one of those guys. We think of him most as Pacquiao's coach, has coached a lot of fantastic fighters. What's your thought on him as a coach? What does he bring that's so special, man?
Look, he's one of the best of all times. He brings his knowledge from back in the days when he was training with Fudge, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And look, what he did, just with Pacquiao himself was unbelievable, from being a bantamweight to a super welterweight champion of the world. Unbelievable, the skills he has as a trainer, and not only Pacquiao, but he made a big difference with Cotto's career.
Wow.
And so you got to respect, you got to admire. I know there's always been that little rivalry between him and myself, especially because of Pacquiao and Margarito Pacquiao and Brandon Rios. But besides that, I have nothing but respect for him. I always tell everybody, look, Freddie's one of the best of all times. He is, and he accomplished a lot. He made many world champions, and you got to respect it.
What does a great coach bring? And Chris, let me ask you, because it's one of those contradictions in combat sports where that guy's a great coach, and sometimes I go, yeah, anyone could make that guy a great coach. There are coaches that just take talent and kind of mold it the right way. Certain coaches like Emmanuel Stewart literally build a guy from the ground up, like he did with Tommy Hearns, who started with him as an amateur. The difficulty is a lot of guys go in, they're already big, and they go to a coach. Well, yeah, you already have a guy who's a talented amateur. Great coaches don't work with just anybody. So that skill that a coach has, is it about being geared toward a particular fighter? Is it about building somebody from the ground up? Is it about the system? What is it?
Well, first things first, Freddie, happy birthday. Love you, man.
Yeah. Freddie, you're awesome.
You're the best, man. In terms of coaches, so there's a number of different kinds of coaches. There are coaches that teach a style, right? And they'll need the right charge. They'll need the right fighter to match the style that they already teach. Then you've got coaches that can just build off of what their their talent comes to them with, what their fighter comes to them with, and they got a good eye for overall talent, and they're able to pick out certain things. That takes that's a lot more difficult. You got to have a really, really vast war chest and be able to teach a lot of different styles and techniques. But I think it's even just more than that. You've got to have a systematic approach and a system. Everything is systems, the way I look at things. And Robert, you do this really well. You have a very systematic approach to how you train your fighters at all levels. And that's why you've had so much success over the years and be able to build up a whole new branch. And I saw it firsthand, so that's why I'm able to speak on it. But even yesterday, I spoke about that with Bomac. He strikes me as another guy who's a very systematic coach in terms of he's got the system of how the gym organization and ecosystem works, where guys are getting better together. But also, when that guy does this, we do that kind of thing.
Yep.
And it's just based on fundamentals and based on what works. Time, tried and true. And then you've got certain coaches that just make connections with specific fighters. And that's where Freddie comes in with Manny Pacquiao. I don't think without Freddie, Manny Pacquiao becomes the thing that he is today. I think that they had a very unique symbiosis that they were able to connect together and find a way. And part of that is that Freddie is an offense coach. He teaches offense. He builds off of what you already got. And Manny is such an offensive machine, but he just systemized his recklessness because Manny was chaotic, and Freddie was able to put some systems and control to that. So he also gave him that right hook, that the Manila Ice, which was nasty because. Remember, Robert, Pacquiao was a one-handed fighter for a while. When he was beating up Barrera and Morales, it was just straight left hands exploding on you. And then he found a right hook, and that's how he finished Morales the last time. But
Ricky Hatton, same deal. Yeah. That was a nasty one.
Yeah. That was an added addition to Manny's arsenal. And then I'm glad you brought up Cotto because a lot of people look at Freddie as a one-trick pony and it was just because of Manny. No, he did it with a very different fighter in Miguel Cotto, who was super fundamental. Great jab, great left hook. Decent right hand. He helped him bring out that right hand. And you've seen it throughout the years. Even Munguia, I was really impressed with Freddie was able to do with a guy like Jaime Munguia, who I thought was kind of one-dimensional at times, and then he brought out his right hand. Yeah, Freddie is definitely a special coach, and he uses a combinations of different coaching techniques to become as good as he is, from teaching a specific style to systemizing the gym and having great sparring, but also making a personal connection with his fighters and be able to bring things out of them. And that's the last thing that I got to bring in. And Robert, you do this probably as good as anyone in the world, if not the best, being able to speak to your fighters in the heat of battle. That is the number one thing I think is most important when it comes to a coach these days, because everybody can get you in shape. Everybody can show you how to throw a jab and keep your elbows in when you're supposed to. But when shit hits the fan in the ring, who is giving you the right direction in the verbiage and semantics that you can understand to get you to do it? Because not everybody can do that. And that's a skill that you can't teach. You just got to figure that out. And I think, Robert, you and Freddie both being former professionals, you obviously becoming a world champion. Freddie never became champion, but had a very substantial professional career. I think that really helps when you're a professional trainer that you've had pro experience. I think Freddie had 30, close to 40 fights.
Yeah, journeyman. I mean, I don't know, journeyman.
Gatekeeper. But very, very substantial fight career.
Also joined by another great coach, able to wish a happy birthday, of course, to Freddie Roach. Breadman Edwards, thank you so much for joining us again. We're talking about happy birthday, Freddie Roach, a great trainer, great coach. And I want to ask you, as another great coach, what made him great? What did he bring out of fighters that makes him exceptional, man?
Well, I don't think I'm a great coach yet. I got a lot more work to do. But
the humility, I love it.
The humility of Breadman.
I think Freddie Roach, everybody, I remember people used to say stuff about Freddie Roach like, well, Manny Pacquiao was already a world champion and stuff like this. And I never agreed with that because I always thought that when you have a guy that already has some success and you have to break his bad habits, that's a very difficult thing. I would rather get a blank canvas with a talented kid and get the paint on that canvas than to get a guy who's already an established fighter, but they got there doing things the wrong way, and you have to break a lot of those habits. Yeah. So I've always respected Freddie Roach. I'm not friends with him or anything like that, but I have talked with him, and I think he's a phenomenal coach. But I think the best coaches, I don't always think the best coaches have the best fighters. I think the best coach gets the most out of their fighters because Nobody's going to turn Butterbean into Muhammad Ali. But if you get the most out of your fighter, like Robert Garcia, for an example, he got so much out of McDonough. McDonough almost won that fight against Floyd in the first fight. The second fight, Floyd kind of adjusted. But that first fight, that would have been a monumental win if you could get a guy like McDonough to beat the best fighter of the generation. So that fight right there let me know that Robert Garcia was a special coach, because McDonough performed on an even level with the best fighter of the generation. And we know that McDonough doesn't have Floyd's talent. So to me, the best coaches, it's not always the guy with the number one fighter in the world. It's the guy who gets the most out of what he gets, because you can't control the talent that you get, but you can control how much you get out of them.
Coach Garcia, I'm going to ask, obviously, great point there, Breadman. Coach Garcia, you're one of the few guys who had a world championship career and yet has been a great coach. I think of you, I think of Buddy McGirt, right? But the
Yes.
idea that, as Chris said, a lot of great coaches weren't necessarily great fighters. They weren't always the best fighter. Bomac, right? What is it in a fighter that transitions into a great coach? Because not a lot of them do, Robert. What is it?
But look, what I did is I brought everything that I lived as a fighter, when it was training camps to diets and experiences when it came to negotiations and everything. I brought everything and put everything together to better my fighters and help them in whatever and whatever situation they were. If it was with training, with financially, with picking the right fights. I just brought everything together, and I think created a great team, with my dad still being involved, even my brother Mikey, who comes around and gives advice. The team, my young team that I have with my son Pita, Chepe, Felipe, our conditioning coach Charles. I think creating a great team, and not thinking there's a lot of coaches that want to do it all themselves. Sometimes you got to know that you need a team to be able to bring the best out of your fighters. And the most important thing is connect with your fighters. I connect with my fighters very well, and they believe me and they trust me. And that's the main thing.
Great stuff. Obviously, once again, happy birthday, Freddie Roach. Hope you're doing well. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Big Baby Miller has some comments about Tyson Fury and his chance and how his next fight's going to go right after this.
On Friday, March 13th, ProBox TV returns to Kissimmee, Florida for another action-packed contender series. In the 10-round main event, ProBox TV alumnus and fast-rising world-ranked light heavyweight Najee Lopez takes another stern test against Mexican top contender Manuel Gallegos. Up-and-coming Dominic Valle will take on battle-hardened veteran Eduardo Ramirez of Mexico.
Well, it's called Big Baby, but it's a hell of a heavyweight. That's right. Big Baby Miller had some comments about Tyson Fury returning, of course, against Makhmudov. He said, quote, "Anybody who's a little taller for Tyson gives him a little problem. If you watch history, the thing is, will Makhmudov's chin hold up, and will he be a little aggressive? If Makhmudov can be aggressive, use a little head movement, and come forward, I think he can give Tyson a lot of problems. I think Tyson still pulls through, but I don't think it's an easy fight like everybody thinks it is. The guy can crack, and he does have some meanness to him. Let's see how long he stands up." Jimmy Smith alongside Breadman Edwards, Chris Algieri. Chris, let me start with you. What do you think of Big Baby's comments? Is there some validity there?
Well, it makes me think. I wonder if Big Baby has had some sparring with Makhmudov, because he has some inside information about how tough he is. But also, I do agree. I don't think this is an easy fight. I actually said when it first was announced, I think it's a good fight. I think Tyson at his height, height of his performance and his ability, I think he smokes Makhmudov. But we're not seeing that Tyson. We're getting Tyson who has been out of the ring for a long time, who's had some very, very tough fights throughout his career. He's probably left some of himself in the ring at this point. It really depends on what version of Tyson Fury shows up. That's where the question marks really are. But in terms of what Makhmudov is, we kind of know what Makhmudov is. He's big, he's strong, he's a real heavyweight. He's going to come forward. He's been obviously a lot more active than Tyson. It's a real fight. It's not an easy walkover fight. But it really depends on what kind of Tyson Fury we're going to get. The thing about Tyson Fury is he is so talented and athletic, and he just gets this thing right, and he's ready to go. And by this thing, I mean his head. And he goes out there and performs. But on any given night, Tyson can put up a Francis Ngannou. or he can put up a Deontay Wilder, especially in the second and third fight. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's a big question mark in terms of Tyson, but yeah, I don't see this as an easy fight.
So Breadman, is there any way to combat that in the gym? Right, where a guy in Tyson Fury, the negative on Tyson Fury is he tends to fight down to the level of his opposition. Lennox Lewis had a little bit of that as well. He looked great against great fighters, against fighters that he didn't think he really belonged in there with. He would kind of take a lackadaisical approach, and a couple times it cost him. How can you fix that in the gym? What can you do to a fighter mentally as experienced as Tyson Fury? Is it really up to him?
That's a great question, because I had a kid that could be a little bit hot and cold in Julian Williams. And, inconsistent, everything happens for a reason. And I would talk about it. I would talk about, monitoring your daily habits, staying locked in, staying off your phone. Because when a person is inconsistent, there is a reason for it. We don't always figure out the reason, but there's something that's happening that's distracting them. And Tyson Fury is a guy who is, he's getting up there. He has to be closer to 40 now. He is a little hot and cold, and he may have left a piece of himself in the ring with Deontay Wilder. Say what you want about Deontay Wilder. He's a murderous puncher. And to fight him 3 times and be knocked down, I don't know how many times he was knocked down, maybe 5 times by him. And then he had the tough Usyk fight and, the tough Francis Ngannou fight. He probably is on the other side of his prime. And he also has, weight issues. Anytime you blow up to 400 pounds, then, you have some metabolism issues. So I don't look at any Tyson Fury fight as a gimme, and although he's a big guy, he's not a huge puncher. So his fights usually go into the second half of fight. So you kind of have to wait and see what you get. But most time inconsistencies come from lack of concentration and lack of focus. To be totally honest with you, it's most times it's not a physical thing; it's a mental focus kind of thing. So it's something that has to be addressed. You have to talk about it. You have to get consistent habits in the gym. I know fighters that get mental health coaches. They never speak on it out loud, but they get mental health coaches for those reasons, so they can. So because when you have a great night, you always chase that, and you always want to go back and say, "How did I have that night? How did I do that?" And so they get mental health coaches to kind of help them get, back to those nights. And it's not an easy thing when you're dealing with an inconsistent athlete. And I heard Tyson Fury say he was going to train himself this fight, which kind of threw me for a loop. So I wonder, I don't even know how to take that. You guys may can ask Robert. I don't know how to take a fighter saying he wants to train himself, because I thought Sugar Hill was doing a great job with him, but I guess we'll see.
Brad, you brought up something really powerful, the mental health coaching. And I saw a psychologist once I started. My first main event on ESPN, I fought Emmanuel Taylor. And it was a really big opportunity for me, and got to bring ESPN into my hometown. First time they ever come in. And I remember being very down after that fight. And, looking like I needed some help. So I went out and spoke to some people, and obviously my career went great after that. But it was an important part at that stage of my life to be able to acknowledge that, I needed to seek some help, because what was going on in my head wasn't headed in the right direction. And I think a lot of fighters are afraid to do things like that. So I thank you for bringing that up, because I think a lot of guys don't think about that. And secondly, you talk about Julian Williams. J-Rock came to spar with Danny Jacobs when I was in camp with Danny once. He came to Long Island. And God, he looked good. I looked at him and I was like, well, when is your fight? And he was like a couple months out from fighting Jarrett Hurd for the title. And I was like,
no, he was only a couple of weeks out, Chris.
No, it was more time than I thought. Maybe you're right, because I told him, I was like, yo, wherever you're at right now, be right here. Because I'm like, he looked championship level, like right there. So maybe you're right. Maybe it was like 3 or 4 weeks out or something like that. And I was like, wherever you're at right now. I asked him, what's your weight? Where you at? He told me his weight, and I'm like, okay, you're good. Maintain a little bit. I'm like, don't change anything. He looked so good. I mean, he saw everything come in. His conditioning looked great. He looked fast. He looked strong. He looked decisive. And then he went out there and obviously and upset Hurd and became a world champion. So, yeah, when he was on, man, forget it.
You know something, Chris? I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people, they don't believe me when I say how good he was when he was on. And, coaching Julian was the first fight I ever had. And I started writing everything down in camp, like what we would do daily, so I could get those days. And you guys are not going to believe this, but that camp that he had with Hearn was the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. We had about 10 weeks of, he didn't lose. And I don't like talking about sparring, but you brought it up, Chris. He didn't lose a round of sparring for 10 weeks. I'm not even, and Danny Jacobs is world class, bro. He didn't lose a round of sparring for 10 weeks. I've never seen nothing like it. And honestly, I think he left a piece of himself in that camp. That's how perfect he was. And when I tell people, if they didn't witness it, they don't understand it. But he was like, it was like an outer body experience. And we were chasing for another camp like that, and it never came back around. So, you know, consistency is a big thing. But he taught me, like, he would call me and say, what did I do on this day? And I would say, you ran your mile in this time. You looked like this in sparring. We did 4 rounds of mitts. We did 4 rounds of heavy bag, because he would get inconsistent sometime. So I would write everything down so I could touch that moment again. And we touched everything for the Hearn camp. And it was the perfect camp and perfect fight. And it taught me to kind of memorize things and remember what we do and be very, very structured in your approach, so you can try to be a little bit more consistent, you know, with your approach in boxing. So it means a lot. It means everything.
If anyone gives you any pushback on how good Julian was, have him call me. I'll tell you, I saw a damn near perfect fighter. He did everything you could ask for from a guy.
But it's this idea, Chris, that success in any sport, and even, you know, something you put the work in of combat sports, boxing, whatever, is it feels mercurial sometimes. Like, man, I was smoking everybody a couple of days ago. What, you know, today I'm off and everything's, you know, I'm getting my butt kicked and sparring, whatever the deal is. One thing about MMA is we're always getting a butt kicked by somebody. Like, we almost never have
it's more of a grinder sport, yeah.
Right. Well, we never have success against everybody because there's always somebody who's better at what we're doing than what we are. But boxing, you know, this idea, man, I was so on yesterday, I'm not on today. Is it like Breadman said? Sometimes you're trying to like capture that magic again, and you don't know where it went.
No, you're chasing it. You know, you're capturing it. It's lightning in a bottle sometimes, and sometimes some guys have it for, you know, a couple years. Some guys have it for one night. Some guys have it for decades. You know, the best of the guys who can do it consistently, and that's really what separates the pound for pound level or that top or, you know, echelon guy. You know, you mentioned MMA and how you get your butt kicked sometimes. I remember George St. Pierre used to bring in the best from every kind of discipline
and get crushed
and just get his butt kicked all around, whether it was kickboxing, it was wrestling. So that's an entirely different sport. Like, boxing is not quite like that. You do get your butt kicked sometimes. I don't care who you are. You're in camp. Remember, you're bringing in sparring partners and you're paying them. you're paying for their food. Right. You're paying for their lodging. You know, you're paying for their rehab. And then they're coming in and they're kicking your ass and you're giving a check at the end of the day. It's like, God. But then at the end of all that, you're ready for fight night and you whip some ass. So you're always trying to capture those perfect camps and those perfect nights. And that's why the mental health aspect does come into it. Because it's like, you know, it's like the greatest high in the world. You're chasing the dragon forever. But yeah, the best fighters are the ones that consistently figure out the formula and are able to repeat it and then adjust it on the fly, because there's always adjustments. You're never the same guy. Every fight camp changes you. Every fight changes you. You have to figure out and be aware that you are a different thing and you need to adjust appropriately.
Hey, Chris, you know what? You just said a mouthful. Every camp is different. It can even be the time of year.
Yep.
Every camp is different. I've noticed, like, my guys have different qualities at different times of years because we're in Philadelphia. So, you know, we have 4 seasons. So, you know, for example, in a camp in the winter, we don't get to run outside as much. Mm-hmm. So they may not be as twitchy with the sprints because we sprint outside. Where in the winter, we spar more because we got to make up for the fact that we're dealing with snow and all that kind of crap. So we don't get to sprint and run outside as much. You're right, man. Every camp is different, and you're chasing that dragon. There's a lot of dopamine release. It can be frustrating. It can be rewarding. It's a lot, man. It's really tough trying to get that perfect camp.
But when you find it, you get success, as Chris said, and that's what it's all about. That's why you respect everybody who does this for a living. But consistency here, that's right, Boxing Scene Today. It's where you get your boxing news every single day live. Join us, see the consistency. We appreciate you hanging out with us. We'll see you next time.
Saturday, March 21st, ProBox TV invades the NOS Event Center as Lester Martinez and Emmanuel Alim battle for the WBC World Super Middleweight title. Palmdale's Joshua Kevin Anton battles the Uzbeki Punisher. LA is in the house as Anthony Too Quick Cuba defends home turf against Brooklyn's Wesley Farrell, while Sam Contreras takes on Cesar Cantu.